Hi, long time no see. We are finishing this damn thing, if it's the last thing I do. Welcome to part 4, the finale, City of Heavenly Fire. I don't even remember the name of this book. We're ending the Mortal Instruments series. From the time that I started doing this, I've moved houses. Pros, my new house, I can have the AC on and you won't hear it. Cons, I'm facing a very large window and we are fighting a summer rainstorm, so the lighting is going to change. The story will not. So, if it bothers you, close your eyes. As you can see, giant cast. We've got new faces. We've got old faces. We've got a printer that was running out of ink. If you question why there's a yellow line on some of these faces, I wasn't going to ask my husband to print them out twice. He already suffered once. Any other things? Oh, I might have dug myself into a horrible hole by starting this. As you will see in the prologue, we're about to dive in. Cassie Clare, I forget how clever she is. This book is essentially this City of Fire, the final book in the Mortal Instruments series, is essentially the prologue for the next series, the Dark Artifices, like the next series chronologically. And the Dark Artifices is cringe in different ways, let's say, than this one, but cringe nonetheless. I don't know what the future holds in terms of these plot summary videos. If you've got ideas, let me know. But let's dive in, shall we? We've come this far. I also, because I wrote my script so long ago, I have notes at the top of like funny jokes I could make, and they don't make any sense to me. So I'm not going to make them. So welcome. Truly, I appreciate you so much. This has been such a fun, wild ride. Once again, it feels like we're graduating or something. This is kind of sad. Let's go for the last time. The last book, City of Heavenly Fire. Prologue, Fall Like Rain. The Los Angeles Institute, December 2007. So, as mentioned, I completely forgot that this book is essentially a prologue for the Dark Artifices, which, if you haven't read it, takes place in Los Angeles, I think in 2012, maybe? That sounds like a wrong number. So we're 4 to 5 years prior to the next series, okay? And here's how the prologue begins. Cassie Clare, messy boots as usual. The day Emma Carstairs' parents were killed, the weather was perfect. So Emma Carstairs, her parents drop her off at the LA Institute. They have been called to fight some demons, and so they just drop their daughter off with the kids that live at the Institute. They're really close, so this is a pretty normal thing. And she heads directly into the training room where we meet an entire cast of kids. This is a huge family, okay? I'm honestly gonna skip over a couple details in this book just because it is so heavy on being a prologue for the Dark Artifices that I just kind of want to tell you the Mortal Instruments stuff. You're going to see plenty of them in this book, but just for time's sake, I've got 50 pages of notes. If I don't mention like 3 of the 20 children, that's why. Sorry, if you're a huge fan of what's his name? Ty? He's not on the board. Sorry. Anyway, the most important one that we meet, however, is Julian Blackthorn. Okay, so this is the Blackthorn family. This family is the head of the LA Institute. Julian is the middle child. He's Emma's best friend. Julian is the quiet artist type. Emma is the firecracker. I'll kick you in the shins if you say something mean to Julian.
Nothing personal, bub.
They just start training when suddenly there's an enormous flash of light and the world outside the windows turned white, gold, and red, as if the Institute had caught fire. The floor rocked under them like the deck of a ship, and they heard a terrible screaming downstairs. So they rush to make sure the siblings are safe because there's like a baby. He's got like a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old that they're all supposed to be babysitting. So they run to make sure everyone is safe. Eventually, Emma is creeping around the Institute when she sees this shadowy figure, and she immediately knows who this fucker is because Emma's really smart. She knows everything that's going on, okay? The figure had white blonde hair and a scarlet cloak and no mercy in its very beautiful eyes. It was none other than Jonathan Morgenstern, who everyone calls Sebastian. Yes, page 1. Sebastian's here, okay? At this point, the entire Shadowhunter world knows what happened in New York. They immediately know they are in deep shit. And Sebastian, as he walks into the foyer of the Los Angeles Institute, is not alone. The entryway filled with shadowhunters in red and black. Somehow they managed to grab one of Julian's brothers, Mark. We love Mark, okay? And Emma notices that he's got blood on his clothes. Like, this is not a friendly meeting. And at this point, Emma's alone, right? Emma's the only one seeing this because Julian has run off to go help his siblings. All of a sudden, Sebastian is like, bring her. And who comes out but Mr. Blackthorn, Julian's dad. And he's kind of walking really strange. He's dragging a girl with him. It's not, Emma's immediately like, this is not Mr. Blackthorn. So Julian's dad drags the girl to Sebastian, and Sebastian then makes the girl drink from his evil cup. Remember, Sebastian was trying to make like an evil mortal cup that would make like these super shadowhunters. Do we remember this vaguely? Yeah, me too. And the things that he makes with this cup are called the Endarkened. They are like fallen shadowhunters.
What makes you think that could work?
So the screaming that Emma and Julian heard is coming from this girl. And after she drinks from the cup, she is spasming on the ground. And from her throat came a single scream. It was worse than a scream. A howl in pain, as if her soul was being torn from her body. Sebastian's like, okay, that's enough. Get up. And immediately she's like, yes, sir. Reporting for duty. Emma is like, oh, no. And Sebastian's like, all right, looks like we've only got one more shadow hunter to take care of. Because remember, Emma and Julian and all of the kids are too young to have gotten their like official shadow hunter marks. So they don't count yet as shadow hunters. So who's left but Mark, blood-spattered half-brother of Julian. And this is very important that he's a half-brother because Mark is half shadow hunter, half fairy. Yes, and why is this important? Because a fairy is a downworlder. They're not as, on Sebastian's racist scale, they are not equal to a shadow hunter. So when he sees Mark and he kind of realizes what he's dealing with, he's immediately like, ew, never mind, sorry. And with that, Mark spits on Sebastian, which deserved. And Sebastian is like clutching his pearls. He's like, Mr. Blackthorn, can you please go stab your nasty half-breed son that was just spitting on me? And because Mr. Blackthorn is under the control of Sebastian's weird mortal cup, he picks up his sword. The throwing knife left Emma's hand. It flew through the air and buried itself in Sebastian Morgenstern's chest. This seems like a great ending. All right, epic. Let's end it with oh, she's 15. My bad. End it with a 15-year-old girl, just like a little ending it. Okay? How perfect. Let's wrap it up, Cassie. No, because what does Sebastian do? He just looks down at his chest and is like, oh, funny, and takes out the knife. It is in his heart. Okay? Sebastian says something that I honestly, in my notes, I'm like, I'm not going to write that because this is a boy who used to talk like a boy. Okay? Enough that he fooled Clary into thinking he was like a normal guy, right? Now, Sebastian of City of Heavenly Angels speaks exclusively in Bible verses, and I'm just, it's too much. He's like glory, heaven, using a lot of words that have a capital letter that shouldn't. But at the end of the day, basically what he's saying is like, guys, kill her. Emma, smart thinking girl, books it. She just turns around, runs right back up those stairs. Julian, in the meantime, has been preparing a emergency exit portal that I guess they have. That's handy to get all of the kids out, and they're going to go to the shadow hunter country. And even though Emma is like, listen, Mark is still alive, we've got to go back for Mark, we can't leave yet, Julian is like, no, we've been trained for this, like we are shadow hunters, I'm gonna help my family survive. So he grabs Emma, they jump into the portal and are swallowed by the tempest. Part 1, bring forth a fire. We are back in our home of New York City. In fact, we are in Central Park. We've got the whole gang. We've got Alec, Isabel, who's they're like floating in the background because we don't like to leave our boy Jace alone for too long. Jace is with Jordan, our werewolf friend, and they're doing some type of training. So remember, when we last left Jace, he had been like killed and then revived and kissed by an angel. If he touches people, he burns them. Like, he's dealing with some stuff, okay? And Jordan's like, maybe meditation will help, okay? And so, again, the reason why Jace is trying to meditate is because, quote, his thoughts come like exploding fireworks. He has insane dreams. He's tried everything, like training to the point where he's so broken he literally breaks his fingers. And this is his second time trying meditation because Simon recommended it to him. I love the bromance, okay? The first time he meditated, he accidentally burnt his handprints into the floor of Simon and Jordan's apartment. So they're like, all right, let's do this outside. But the second session isn't going to work either because before we can get a clear state of mind, who waltzes up but Clary? Clary walks up to Jordan, is like, hey, what's up? And he's like, I can't fucking do this. All right, your boyfriend's insane. And Clary's like, yeah, but he's hot. Cassandra Clare, truly the poet of our times. That's a quote. That's a quote, by the way. Yeah, but he's hot, so there's that. Quick reminders. All right, everybody, meeting notes. As we remember, Jace and Clary cannot touch without burning each other. It's something weird that they've been working on. Don't worry about it. Speaking of relationships with problems, what's up with Alec? We remember Alec and Magnus, power couple, Shadowhunter and Warlock. They broke up. They've got issues with immortality. They're not communicating, as is the theme of Cassandra Clare's books. However, it is Magnus's birthday today, and Alec doesn't want him to think that he forgot about him, so he's been just calling and texting him nonstop, which is definitely healthy. And Jace is like, here, let me help you with that. Clearly what you're doing isn't working. Hand the phone over, lover boy. Alec is like, ooh, okay, hands Jace the phone, and Jace just snaps it in half. It's 2007. It's a flip phone. Way to go, Jace. Way to go, Jace. How do Shadowhunters even procure technology, right? Like, do they have credit cards? I don't think so. And so now the siblings, Alec and Isabel, are without phones because Isabel threw hers away because her mom, Maurice, where you at, girl? Maurice, has been blowing up their phones because they're preparing for a war and the children are involved, apparently. Because remember, at the very end of our final book, Sebastian left us that cute little message that just said, like, I'm coming. So obviously the older Shadowhunters are prepping for his return. Also on top of the mind for all of our kind of elder Shadowhunters is that when Jace got stabbed, when Clary stabbed Jace, the power within that sword, the heavenly fire, shall we say, transferred to him. He's essentially a walking weapon and he doesn't know how to control it, and he's a very emotional teenage boy. You can see why people are concerned and want to keep tabs on Jace. But anyway, Isabel and Alec are heading back to the Institute for these war meetings. Jace has decided that since he broke Alex's phone and he is just the charmer that everyone loves, he is going to go talk to Magnus and see what he can do about trying to mend this relationship. And then Clary and Simon are going Christmas/Hanukkah shopping. I don't know where Jordan goes. So they're all going their separate ways. Jace decides to like jog backwards, probably shooting some finger guns at everybody, being like, all right, see you later. And this is the mental image I need you to have, okay? This is how we start the book. Clary looks at him doing his little backwards jog and thinks, quote, he's so graceful doing that. And sexy. Definitely sexy. See you later, she called. If I'm not dead from frustration by then. Gotta give it up to Cassie Clare for at least writing teenagers the way a teenager might write themselves, you know? And we've got 700 more pages to enjoy them. Speaking of Clary, the best friends, Simon and Clary, are now off to go shopping. Simon's having a meltdown because he doesn't know what to buy Isabel, his girlfriend, not girlfriend. And Clary doesn't know what to buy Jace, her true love, fated angel boyfriend that only seems to be interested in knives and maybe his reflection, okay? Then they get on the topic of college because they're of age. Simon really wants to go, but he can't get any student loans because of the whole being undead and not having like a social security number kind of thing. That's a bridge that he's gonna try to cross later. But as they're having this very normal teenager conversation, Jocelyn, Clary's mom, runs in and she's like, oh my God, Clary, thank God I found you. I was so worried about you. And Clary's like, I'm in a Sephora. What are we worried about, Mom? This book is such a time capsule. Like, teenagers hanging out in a Sephora. Simple time, simple time. Jocelyn is like, what? No. Didn't Jace text you? We gotta go. And she just like whisks Clary off and is like, bye, Simon. See you later. We gotta go to the Institute. Enjoy Sephora. Why didn't Jace text Clary about whatever emergency is going on? He's being a good friend and trying to talk to Magnus, remember? He just invites himself into Magnus's apartment. It's kind of a mess. And he's like, oh man, smells like heartbreak in here. And Magnus from the couch is like, it's Chinese food. They banter back and forth a little bit just because both of them have the best one-liners other than maybe Simon. But they're at a standstill because Magnus is out emoing Jace at this point, which is kind of scary. That's when Jace picks up a call from Isabel and her voice is tight and strange. The next word she says is all Jace needs to hear. Sebastian. The Institute is filled with the usual suspects, all right? Everybody's gathering in the library, and Maurice is just listing off cities that have been decimated by Sebastian. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, they're all scared about what happened at the LA Institute. Wrong. They're scared about what happened at Berlin. No survivors. Bangkok. No survivors. Moscow. No survivors. When she gets to LA, she says, luckily, the children got out. The children got to Idris. So this was a huge orchestrated attack on all of the institutes around the world. But the good news is at least Emma, Julian, and the younger kids are okay. No word on Mark. And the shadowhunters in charge are really upset because they've been waiting for Sebastian to attack, but they had no idea he would attack the institutes. They thought he would attack Idris, the shadowhunter country, first. And if they were going to attack an institute, why wouldn't he go for New York? Because Sebastian's whole beef is with Clary and Clary's mom. So what are you doing in Bangkok, my man? But they're like, there's nothing we can do now except for move everyone to a safer location, which of course is Idris. We are only 60 pages into this 900-page book, and already the gang is being ripped apart. So Simon has to say goodbye to Clary. Everyone, no exceptions, is being shipped off to the Shadowhunter world. And it's ironic because when they were in Sephora, they were talking about how sad they were going to be being separated going to college. Now, I mean, you can't make phone calls in Idris. This is a huge deal. But these besties are strong, so they say their cute little goodbyes. And then Magnus shows up to say goodbye to Alec. Oh, Jace did something. Jace did something. We get the argument that is going to be rehashed for the next 800 pages of this story, that Magnus doesn't want to see Alec die because he's mortal. Alec is like, I can handle it. Magnus is like, but I can't. Alec actually gives a really moving speech about how everybody gets their time together. Like, even if they were both mortal, you could wake up and be hit by a car. Only the luckiest of people are together until the very end. And especially Alec, coming from being a shadow hunter, that's why they get married so young, is that they know that their lives are going to be short. And Magnus isn't even open to letting them have that amount of time. And like I said, it was a good speech. So Magnus's resolve falters a little bit when he kisses Alec, but immediately snaps back and is like, yeah, shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done that. Have a good time in Idris. And he's like, please be safe there. Don't let your guard down. And I just need you to live. And he turns abruptly and walks away. I need you to live. Alec sat down on a frozen stone bench and put his face in his hands.
We all have to go, David, unless you have some special excuse.
It's my birthday.
Any more drama to get through? Oh, right. Simon and Isabel. They have not DTR'd yet. An acronym I wish I didn't learn. And it is used throughout this entire book. So DTR, what does that mean? They have not defined the relationship. Isabel has never called him her boyfriend, stuff like that, okay? Also, both of them do not know how to express their feelings whatsoever. So Simon is basically like, hey girl, have fun in Idris. Don't die. And Isabel, to her credit, kind of apologizes and she's like, yeah, sorry, I don't know how to relationship. And Simon's like, oh, that's totally fine. Don't mind me. Jace once warned me that you'd walk all over my heart in high-heeled boots, and that hasn't stopped me. Isabel gave a little gasp of startled laughter. You don't mind having your heart stepped on? Simon leaned towards her. I would consider it an honor.
is the ultimate Riz master. The internet knows this, Zendaya knows this, everyone knows this. Yeah. Ultimate Riz master.
With the tiniest kiss, she takes off her necklace and gives it to him. It's her little shadowhunter ruby pendant thing. It's the necklace that basically flashes when there's any kind of demonic activity around. Handy little thing. Okay? She's like, listen, just keep it till I'm back and don't date anybody else while I'm gone. Okay? Simon is like at a loss for words because that is the closest she's come to being like, we are dating, you are my boyfriend. And he kind of walks off in a daze. So at least one person is happy in this book. And thanks to portal travel, moments later, we're all in Idris. Welcome to Shadowhunter country. So we are with Luke and Jocelyn. We're staying in Luke's sister's Amontis's house. And remember, Valentine / Sebastian, I guess, took Amontis, and so she's not here. Okay, empty house and no time to waste. Okay, we've got meetings to go to. Everyone's a little bit on edge because they got there, like, let's say at nighttime, right before bed, and Luke and Jocelyn found in like a kitchen cupboard that damn box. Do you remember when Jocelyn had a box with like a lock of her son's hair in it or something weird, and it was like Sebastian's memory box? Whatever. Anyway, it's in Amontis's house, and they're basically like, the only person who would have put this here is Sebastian. And when Clary is relaying this story to Jace, Jace is like, oh fuck yeah, that's the exact flavor of creepy that Sebastian is. He's fucking with you guys. He knows where you are. So that's a great start. But anyway, we have a meeting the next morning. Everyone, the entire country is in mourning garb because of how many shadow hunters they had lost. And this meeting is being run by none other than Gia Penhallow. She is like the Grand Council or whatever. You can think of her as like the Prime Minister of shadow hunters. Maybe that's a good title. Gia starts the meeting. She basically just tells the entire country everything that we already know. Because remember, the Lightwoods are kind of like the inner circle because they're head of the New York Institute. So not every shadow hunter knows what's going on. So they are learning about the Indarken. She explains all of that to everyone. But there is a tiny bit of good news that comes out of this meeting, which is one shadow hunter in Berlin actually survived. He's just injured, and he's one of the Indarkened. The problem with fighting these Indarkened is that we just don't know what we're dealing with. Like, are they undead? Like, are they like vampires? Like, what? How do we fight something that we don't even know what they are, right? So, luckily, they were able to take this injured Indarkened to the Silent Brothers into the City of Bones, and they're gonna try and do basically experiments on him to just see, like, can we turn him back, right? We don't want to kill him. We would like to turn them back into good shadow hunters, right? Can we reverse the curse is what we're trying to do. And also remember, speaking of good news, there were survivors of the LA Institute attack, and for some unknown reason, Gia thinks it's a good idea to bring this gaggle of children onto the stage. So Emma, Julian's carrying, he's holding a baby in his arms. He's like, what did we decide? Are they 15 years old? 14, 15 years old? Newly orphaned, carrying a baby, and he wants to get up on a stage? Gia. And not only that, because I'd be like, politician, optics, using children, that's nothing new. No. Gia wants to use the mortal sword on these kids to interrogate them in front of the whole country. Like this Cassie. This whole thing doesn't make any sense. But they want to get all the information they can, and they don't want to risk these kids lying or, omitting embarrassing information. So they're going to use the mortal sword, which, if we remember, is the sword that if you're holding it, you're forced to tell the truth. And if you lie, you have excruciating pain. Okay? So let's hand it to a 12-year-old. Shall we? Clary and a lot of other people in the crowd are like, what the fuck, Gia? But Julian bravely stands up and takes the sword. He grabs it and like immediately falters, like pain just ripples through him because it's like the power is so strong. It's not even if he lies or tells the truth, it's just holding that much power like rips through his little body. He hasn't even spoken when the blonde girl that we know as Emma Carstairs runs for him. She's looking pissed. She has, quote, pure fury on her face. Clary's just looking at her like, you go girl, yeah. When Helen, who we've met in a previous book, grabs her and she's like fighting for her life. Helen is Julian's half-sister, Mark's sister. Okay, she's also half Fae. Remember this? And Helen wasn't at the attacks because she's been at Idris, because she's the eldest, right? She's already doing shadowhunter duties, okay? So at least Julian does have one elder sibling there. Emma somehow claws her way out of Helen's grip and is like, no, question me, torture me, like I'll do it, leave Julian alone. And Gia's like, don't worry, girl. Like, we're gonna question you too. Have a little patience. But Emma grabs the sword and they hold it together as she tells the rest of the story. And when she gets to the part where she's like, yeah, I threw a knife and I stabbed Sebastian in the heart, Robert Lightwood is like, girl, you're 12. Are you sure? You know, you could be mistaken. Like, you could have missed. Julian like rockets up and he's like, Emma doesn't miss. And they walk off the stage. Clary is like, that is a girl I want to talk to. So she runs off backstage to try and find them. And immediately Emma is like, what the hell do you want? Like, she's so done with adults. She's like, please leave me alone. I have lived many lives in the past 24 hours. I just want to sit in silence. But Clary wins her over. They bond over the fact that they both have a boy best friend. Simon comes in handy at the weirdest times. And eventually Clary is like, listen, I'm really sorry to hear about Mark. Like, I know that he was like a brother to you. I'm so sorry that he was turned. And Emma's like, no, he wasn't gonna be turned. Sebastian didn't want to touch him because he's part downworlder. And Clary's like, ooh, all right, that's a good nugget to keep. And so she tries to get more information. She's like, okay, what does Mark look like? Does Mark look like Helen? She's, for some reason, she's like, this is the only lead we have when it comes to the Undarkened, right? Apparently he doesn't want them to be downworlders, or they can't be. Detective Clary's on the case. And she's also just trying to help Emma realize that none of this is her fault, because Emma's like, I stabbed him, but it didn't work. When Clary says, quote, heroes aren't always the ones who win. They're the ones who lose sometimes, but they keep fighting and they keep coming back. They don't give up. That's what makes them heroes. Love a Clary pep talk, okay? But their moment is interrupted when Emma literally squeaks and hides behind Clary. Clary turns, ready to fight, when she sees the thing that made Emma squeak is her hot boyfriend, Jace. Oh yeah. He's basically like, hey girls, the meeting's over. Clary, you're in trouble as usual because you left early. And, hey, nice to meet you, Pipsqueak. Emma is like, do you know who your boyfriend is? She's literally like, holy shit, do you know that Jace is like the best shadow hunter? And then she's like, shit, that means that you're Clary Fairchild. That she's not saying shit. Okay, I'm saying shit. But they really have to wrap it up. So Emma, like, as Clary is leaving, is like, by the way, girl, like, you are Jace Lightwood's girlfriend, best shadow hunter in the world. You've got to get a better sword than that. That's embarrassing. And Clary's like, thanks, girl. Bye. What is going on with the people that we left behind in New York? Well, they're waiting an ungodly amount of time for their Thai delivery. Jordan, Maya, and Simon are hanging out in their apartment waiting for their pad Thai to be delivered when there's finally a knock on the door. Simon runs to go get the food when his little ruby necklace that Isabel gave him, that surely is going to come in handy at some point, starts flashing. This is how he is able to miraculously avoid the guy who is not the Thai food delivery guy, but in fact a creepy ass shadow hunter swiping at his face. Maya wastes no time and gets into wolf form and is immediately battling it out. She ends up biting him and somehow getting thrown all the way down the hallway. And so that's when Jordan is like, all right, suit up, everybody. Remember, he is Simon's official guard from the Praetor Lupus, or, his werewolf guard group. So his first priority, even though he's in love with Maya, is Simon. So before running to rescue her, he's like, listen, get out. Like, I can't fight this guy if I'm got one eye on you. Please run for safety. Okay. As Simon runs to leave, he notices that the shadow hunter is cursing in what Simon thinks is German. So that's weird. But he does listen to Jordan and he climbs out the fire escape. The second he climbs out the fire escape, as if this night wasn't already chaotic enough, and they're running on empty stomachs. Remember, they didn't get their Thai food. He's attacked by like a giant group of vampires. Somebody puts a bag over his head, ties it tight around his throat, and then whispers, Maureen sends her regards, before Simon's world goes dark. We're like 100 pages in, okay? This plot goes hard. But as always, when Simon is in deep shit, Clary finds herself in the midst of a steamy scene, so let's check in on the lovely couple. Clary and Jace are going for a little walk, blowing off steam, trying to understand what the hell is going on in their world. And Clary's giving him the usual pep talk of like, you're not evil, you were raised by an evil man, but you are great, right? When he kind of pulls her into this alley and he says, listen, I love you. I don't say it enough, but I really do. And Clary, who again, her whole role in this book is to be the sexually frustrated teenager, she is like, Jace, you did not just pull me into an alley, tell me that you love me, and then you're not gonna kiss me. So continue. He's trying to be like, oh, we really shouldn't, but as he's saying that, he's like leaning her up against the wall, doing the whole man stance thing. Clary's like, no, like we can figure it out, you know? And Jace is like, Clarissa, look at the wall behind you and tell me what you see. And sure enough, there are twin scorch marks into the stone, the exact shape of his hands. So heavenly fire, very much not under control. Kissy time, not happening. Clary, still very upset. Alleyway, scorched. Okay? So, Now let's move on to a character we haven't talked about in a hot minute, the Seelie Queen. We can't forget about the fairies. No. She's just generally sus because she's a fae, and in Cassandra Clare's world, they are proper fae that like to lie, and they're little tricksters, and they're up to no good, right? But she's extra sus in this scene because she has Sebastian in her bed. We as the reader are confused about this. It was not talked about that they were in any kind of relationship, so we are lost. We don't, maybe they're just cuddling. I don't know. Nobody knows. But there is a knock on the door, and when she gets up to answer it, she's naked. So do with that information what you will. And who's at the door but Meliorn, and that fucker has news. All right, we don't like Meliorn. I forget the exact details why, but like, no. Isabel doesn't like him, we don't like him. Meliorn is like, hey, so we did the whole Los Angeles Institute thing, there were some survivors, and they told the Clave everything, but the good news is those idiots thought that they were fighting the Indarkened, when in fact, most of those fake shadowhunters were fae. The Seelie Queen and Sebastian teamed up, and the fae are the ones that are helping with these attacks. But hey, what's happening to Mark? We like Mark. I know I haven't given you any reason to, but like, we like him. Okay, he's a cutie patootie. What's happening to our half fae, half shadowhunter eldest brother, Mark Blackthorn? Well, he's fae. So Sebastian's like, not my fucking problem. Seelie Queen, do with him what you will. And what she will is force him to enter the wild hunt. So if you know anything about fairy tales, the fae, there's something called the wild hunt, and in this world the hunt like doesn't really stop. Like once you get on one of those crazy horses and you're riding through the sky, you kind of lose your mind. You give yourself over to the call of the hunt, and who knows if you ever actually leave it. So she's basically like, yeah, you know, it's about time for one of those. Let's just throw him on a horse and see how he does. And in terms of what's next with their evil plan, there's nothing they can really do because Jace and Clary and Jocelyn, enemies number 1, 2, and 3, are safely behind many wards in Idris. But for some unknown reason, a few institutes have taken their sweet time evacuating. Remember how the New York Institute was like 30 seconds, go. We're in that portal, we're in Idris. Meliorn is listing off a handful of the slowpoke cities, and the Seelie Queen looks at Sebastian and is like, up to you, man, what do you want? And Sebastian says, take London, my love, and turn it to blood. Speaking of blood, when Simon opens his eyes, at first all he sees is floral wallpaper, and he's like, all right, not the worst thing I could have opened my eyes to see. Then he notices the bars standing between him and the floral wallpaper because he is in a cage. And what else? He looks down at his body. He's in this like flowy white Victorian shirt. Okay, picture the guys from Hocus Pocus, and everyone's like, why don't boys dress like that anymore? Well, Simon does, but what's beneath the flowy shirt? Very tight leather pants. Very tight, very leather, in his own words. Why is it, he says to himself after a moment, whenever I think I found the most terrible thing that can happen to me, I'm always wrong. So Simon is in a cage dressed like this Tuck Everlasting Hocus Pocus latex number. okay? When Maureen, crazy as fuck Maureen, walks in and is like, Simon. Remember, this was a 13-year-old girl who had a crush on Simon because he was in a band, and then she got turned into a vampire, and somehow that crush has now turned into, she's an absolute psychopath, okay? She's got her face in between the bars like, Simon. She's basically like, Simon, listen, don't worry about where we are or what's going on. Your whole job is just to fall in love with me, okay? She's the queen of vampires now. She's got like a crown made out of finger bones that she's like twirling around. We're going to rule my kingdom together. So take all the time you need, but you're gonna fall in love with me. How could you not fall in love with me? I'm Queen Maureen, queen of the night, of the darkness, of the dead. And then she just disappears, leaving Simon alone in his new leather pants and the horrible weight of his guilt. He still feels quite guilty about Maureen, right? Like, she was in harm's way because of him, but damn, how long? Who would have known she would become this? Catching up with our werewolf friends, they don't know where Simon is. They're only hoping that he got to safety and is hopefully under the protection of the praetor Lupus. In terms of that shadowhunter, apparently shadowhunters aren't like demons. So when you kill a demon, they go poof. And maybe there's some dust, you know, but a shadowhunter is still a mortal body, so they had to like clean up a significant amount of mess, let's just say. So now they're driving to get to the praetor Lupus, and Maya keeps trying to tell Jordan a secret, something that is awkward, uncomfortable, something that we know needs to be said. We don't know. The reader doesn't know what the secret is, but you know that when someone is like, I need to tell you something, and another character is like, tell me later. We've been down this road before. Maya keeps trying to interrupt when all of a sudden she's like, wait, Jordan, is it snowing? And remember, it's winter. It's almost Christmas time. It's New York City. It could be snowing, but the white flakes that are hitting the windshield aren't melting. And Jordan's like, Maya, that's ash. And sure enough, as they turn the corner to get to the wolf headquarters, where a building should have been, was a cloud of black smoke. Of course they run to try and help. They realize that there are werewolves littered all over the ground. Maya runs to the first one she can find, and his throat is slit open. She tries to call out for Jordan, and he says, hold on, but his sentence is cut off with a gasp. Maya turns around and nearly passes out from the shock because Jordan is standing behind her. What's that in his chest? But a giant blade someone had stabbed through his back. Blood is spreading through the front of his jacket. He's gasping this weird bubbly sound, and he falls to his knees as the sword slips back out of his body. Standing behind him is this creepy ass blonde boy with a massive black and silver sword. He's covered in blood, just smiling ear to ear, and says, Maya and Jordan, I've heard a lot about you. Maya falls to her knees, is cradling Jordan, trying to stop the blood. Jordan is like, run, girl. Like, I'm obviously out for the count. Like, please go. She's like, I can't leave you. When the blonde boy speaks up, and who is the blonde boy? Who is the creepy ass blonde boy? Look at the board. It's Sebastian. I thought he was going to go bother London. Apparently he can do two things at once because he's here. Maya is like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Sebastian's like, girl, it's not gonna be okay. He's gonna die. Basically, the London Institute is annoyingly well protected. So Sebastian really had his heart on killing somebody today, and he couldn't. So he came to the wolves. A villain's got to do what a villain's got to do, you know? And he hopes that this will be a warning to any of the downworlders that are helping the good shadowhunters that you're not safe from this bloodlust either. He personally has no issues with downworlders. He said, he's like, I prefer to imagine that they don't exist. Okay, he's like the racist that doesn't see color. He's like, I just, I'd prefer it if we just don't even think about them. I don't have any beef, but I just wish you didn't exist. But if they're gonna exist, they better not be helping his enemies. Sebastian leans in and he says, I will not stop until every one of you is cut from this world. Do you think you can remember that, wolf girl? And Maya's like, yeah, I can. Of course you can, Sebastian says with a smile. Your boyfriend's dead, by the way, he says, and walks off. Back in Idris, Jace and Clary are heading to a weapons shop, and Jace is like, listen, no complaints, girl, but why are you so interested in upgrading your swords?
No one ever told me that when you get a boyfriend, they start asking, why did you buy that? You don't need it.
Clary's basically like, yeah, when a 12-year-old tells you that your weapons suck, You start to reevaluate. So because Clary and Jace, as we have established, are very famous now in the Shadowhunter world, the owner of the weapons shop immediately knows who they are. And Clary kind of zeroes in on this one sword. And this sword, surprise, surprise, was traditionally actually belonged to the Morgenstern family, aka Valentine, aka Clary's dad. So her family, right? And apparently there were two. There was a father and a son sword, and for some reason somebody gave the weapons shop one of them, probably Jocelyn, probably because she didn't want to have anything to do with anything Valentine-esque, right? And Clary's like, yeah, I'm with my mom, like I don't really want anything to do with that either. But Jace and the shop owner are like, no, this is your birthright. The weapons shop owner's name is Diana, and Diana says, if you flinch from it, you give it power over you. Take it and cut your brother's throat with it. Take back the honor of your blood. What? These are teenagers. Anyway, she gives it to her for free. She's like, listen, it's your family's sword. I'm not going to charge you for it. Have at it. And of course, when Clary picks it up, the grip of the sword fits as if it were made for her. Also, random tidbit, while they're at the weapons shop, Diana gets a message that the London Institute was attacked, as we know, but they're pretty okay. Seems like there's injuries, but there are survivors. And at one point, they talk about the LA Institute kids, Emma, Julian, and all the babies, and they refer to them unironically as the war orphans. We've got the war orphans, and now we have a few more London Institute survivors. Thank God for that. But there's like nothing we can do with that information, so Jace and Clary head to the Hall of Accords because that's typically where you get your first Shadowhunter weapon blessed. And he seems to be really nice, really supportive. He's so excited for her. Whether he's like not making enough sexy jokes or something, Clary can tell something's off, and she's like, Jace, have you been thinking about Sebastian a lot? Like something's on your mind. And this is when Jace kind of opens up. He's like, ugh, it's just so stupid that I had fun with Sebastian. He was like, I enjoyed my time with him. He said he's batshit, but his ideas, when we talked, we could work together and come up with these crazy schemes. Like our minds worked in such a great way together. And Clary's like, no, you were like being mind controlled. That's just how you're remembering it. It's not how it actually was. Like, you're not evil. And Jace is like, well, if I'm not evil, how come I could think of a million ways to break down and destroy the Shadowhunter world, but I couldn't think of a single way to fix it? He's like, think about it. The leaders of Hell's army, Satan himself, they were the brightest servants of God, and they fell. It's a long way to fall. Just as Clary is about to knock some sense into this boy that he is not Satan, when the sky lights up in like red and white lights, Clary has no idea what's going on, but Jace grew up in Idris, so he knows what the kind of signals mean, and he just says, there's been another attack. It turns out Sebastian actually attacked the Citadel, which is where the Iron Sisters live. Remember, we have Silent Brothers who live in the City of Bones or Silent City, and then we have the Iron Sisters who live in the Citadel, and they basically make weapons. So they've been working like overtime trying to make weapons for the Shadowhunters to prep for this giant demon war. Sebastian hit them there. A bunch of the Shadowhunters are going through the portal, heading directly to the Citadel to help because the attack is currently happening. For some reason, Robert Lightwood, who just does not give off the vibes of someone who like should be leading an army, he's in charge, and he and Jace get in a huge fight because Jace is trying to be like, it's a trap, we can't go, you're sending everybody to their deaths, you've got to stop this, blah blah blah. Robert Lightwood is like, you're just a little kid, you're not gonna go fight, go hang out with my son, whatever. And Clary is just standing there like, yeah, what he said. I agree with my boyfriend. He's hot. What do Tweedledee and Tweedledum do? They're standing in front of the portal, Jace and Clary. Clary is like, I love you, Jace. Don't you dare try to stop me. And Jace just grabs her hand and is like, I'm right there with you, babe. On the count of 3, we run. And what do these idiots do? They jump through the portal.
I kind of want to give the advice that is the opposite of what people normally say, which is maybe don't just do it. Maybe like give things some thought.
Off they go into battle that they know is a trap and everybody's gonna die. But thank God, Clary has her new sword. Took a break, got my voice back. Let's get back to the real important part of this story, which is Simon and his leather pants. How are they doing? Time has passed. He now wakes up to an impatient voice being like, we don't got all time, babe. Wakey, wakey. Who has come to join us but none other than Raphael. And Raphael is trying to propose a truce because remember, him and Simon aren't exactly friends. And Raphael is like, listen, Maureen is insane. To be fair, not her fault. Right? Remember, she was turned into a vampire. Nobody was there to help her. She literally had to crawl her own way out of a coffin. But Raphael is like, listen, Simon, you care about what happens to humans. I care about what happens to vampires. Maureen cares about nothing. Nothing except for you. Right? We've got to stop her, man. The problem is the younger vampires actually really like her because they're still like young and free and crazy. And so everything she's saying of like, the vampires are gonna rule the world and we should be allowed to eat humans as often as we want to. They're down with that. They're down with Queen Maureen. And Raphael is like, we can't take her down right now. She's got too many allies, but somebody needs to go to Alicante in Idris in Shadowhunter land to be the vampire representative. And technically that's supposed to be Raphael. But he's like, what if I ask to bring you along? Because you have the biggest in with the Shadowhunters. Like nobody can argue with that. That would be an amazing team to make sure that our voices are heard at the table. Raphael and Simon, dream team. Okay. And Raphael's like, and I'd like you to make up your mind right now because I have a portal waiting and we gotta go. We've got a short window before Maureen changes her mind and wants to keep you here. Let's go. The gang is getting back together slowly but surely. But remember that trap that Jace and Clary knew about but willingly walked into? Let's catch up with them. The Citadel is in a really weird place, described as desolate, a volcanic plain, but it's also snowing. And then they see a bunch of the Endarkened like standing out on the horizon, just these like shadowy figures. So in front of them is a line of Endarkened. Behind them is the portal they just came out of. But surprise, there's a bunch of Endarkened behind the portal. So they just literally transported themselves into a circle of their enemies. So point for Jace. Point for Jace. One Shadowhunter recognizes her brother as one of the Endarkened and is like, Jason, we're looking for a cure. Just hold on. You don't have to do this. And he, with a smile on his face, slits her throat. So we're not bargaining with these folks. Jace is like, I've got a plan, but it involves you making another portal, Clary. So off you trot, get to work. They apparently make a lot of intense eye contact and a lot of unspoken words are understood between them. And she runs off, the crowd swallowing her up, just as an Endarkened warrior drew his weapon free and lunged for Jace. Jace leaps forward as well, his sword outstretched. So if nothing else, Jace gets to try out his new like weapon body. I feel like he's been cooped up for a while. He hasn't been allowed to really fight. So I feel like this could be good. This could be good for everybody. Clary, meanwhile, is trying to run to the Citadel because she needs a wall. Okay, if you're gonna start a portal, you need a wall to like make a door through, right? They're on, as we mentioned, a desolate volcanic plain. So she's running to the only structure that's there. She somehow manages to get inside, and the second she's on the other side of that wall, a cold, even voice says, "Drop the stele, Valentine's daughter." Standing behind her is Amantis, sword in hand, the sharp tip pointed directly at Clary, and there was a feral grin on her face. So yeah, Clary is like getting out her little magic wand stele thing, right about to save the day and make a portal, and Amantis is like, oh, 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 oh. And as we remember, Amantis is Luke's sister, but she was taken by Valentine and was one of the first, if not the first, victim of the evil not mortal cup. She's got Amantis's body, but other than that, nothing. Right? Moments later, Amantis is dragging Clary through the Citadel, saying that she's bringing her to Sebastian. He's going to be so happy to see her. Oh my God, he's missed you. I love seeing a family reunion. Speaking of family, she's also just like shit-talking her brother Luke, right? Like he should have died when he realized he was becoming a werewolf. He should have had the balls to kill himself. So She's not nice anymore. She's also saying how happy she is to be on this side of the war when she stops mid-sentence. Clary followed her gaze, and for a moment she couldn't see what the other woman was staring at. Through the window, she saw the chaos of fighting, the blood in the snow. But then she realized the battle seemed to be resolving itself into a sort of pattern, like there was something cutting a path through the middle of the crowd, like a ship slicing through water. A slender, black-clad shadowhunter with bright hair, moving so fast it was like watching fire spring from ridge to ridge in a forest. Clary could see space being cleared, and who stood at the center of it. Despite everything, she smiled. Jace. Yup, Jace is down there by himself, slashing this army to ribbons. MVP, man of my heart. But he's just one part of the power couple, remember, because Clary uses this moment of Amantis being distracted to strike. She swings forward, hooks her legs around Amantis' ankle, and slams her to the ground. Clary had a knife to her throat before Amantis could catch her breath. Yep, so eat that, Robert Lightwood. You weren't gonna put your two best players in the game? But what are my favorite siblings up to? Alec and Isabel. Well, they're still in Idris on the other side of the portal because Daddy Dearest wouldn't let them go. And Isabel is out for blood. Oh my god, this girl is livid. She's basically like, Sebastian is on the other side of that portal and I'm gonna be the one to kill him. So let me through, right? Sebastian killed her baby brother. Isabel is going to return the favor, all right? And if Isabel isn't allowed to kill Sebastian, she is certainly going to take down the next man in her sight, which is none other than Robert Lightwood, her father. And she, remember, has just discovered recently that he cheated on her mom, and she is like fucking sick of men. So Isabel goes for the throat. She's basically like, listen, I know you cheated on mom and you guys also worked with Valentine, so you don't exactly have a strong foundation to stand on in terms of morality here. You don't get to tell me if I'm being a good shadow hunter or not. I know that you guys were gonna break up if it weren't for Max, and now look, Max is dead, so why don't you just leave our family like you wanted to? She storms off. Alec is like, wait, is that true? Like, he didn't know that. The whole family is just kind of standing there in different levels of shock. Isabel's bomb landed. But back to our diva, Jace. Remember, Clary can see what he's doing because she saw him from like way above. He has no idea how Clary's doing. He's hoping to God that she's figuring out the portal issue, but he's in the midst of a fiery takedown of the Endarkened, okay? Just praying that she's safe. When he is stopped by none other than Seabass, his bestie, Sebastian, all right? Sebastian in the book literally calls him my Jace. He's like, oh, my Jace. Did you miss me? He's like, listen, this is the same dance we're always dancing, my brother. He's like, you won't hurt me because you know that then I'll hurt Clary, and Clary doesn't want to hurt me because then I'm gonna hurt you, and blah, blah, blah. You guys are so obsessed with being good and being nice to each other. Can't you see that it's ruining all of our fun? That's why all of these books are 900 pages long. We're just simply never going to escape the incest plotline that Cassie Clare really wants running through this whole series. So she throws this in for us, all right? Jace is like, you don't know us. And Sebastian's like, well, I think I know my sister. And not now, but soon enough. I'll know her every way you can know someone. He grinned again. Feral. I'm not the only one gagging. Literally, it says nausea rose up in Jace. Nausea and rage. And he just lunges. I would honestly be like, ew, don't want to touch that. But Jace is more of a fighter than me, so he goes straight for the face. But somehow, the angel of the battlefield misses. Sebastian just goes, whoop. Sebastian, the coward, decides that he's going to stab Jace in the back because Jace has fallen to the ground. So he whips out this Morgenstern sword and he just gets him right in the back, that bastard. But the sword starts to interact with the weird heavenly fire inside of Jace. So it starts to like erupt in flames. And eventually Sebastian has to drop the sword. He jerks his hand back as if he himself had been stabbed. And if you look close enough at Sebastian, you'd see the sword actually burned into the palm of his hands. That's weird. Even weirder, the scary sisters come out of the Citadel, and they have these crazy swords. Okay, the Iron Sisters are heavily tattooed, like every inch of their body, their faces, covered in ink. They apparently haven't left the Citadel in like 600 years. New people have come in, but nobody comes out. And they say, quote, "When the heavenly fire calls to us, we come." So apparently this little stab wound fire fest thing that just happened summoned these weapon-making nuns out of their 600-year sworn exile, basically. The Iron Sisters surround Sebastian, and they're basically like, touch him and die. Time to retreat, boy, they said. And because we know that Sebastian is a big-ass coward, he's basically like, well, you guys are gonna lose someday. He stabs the earth with his sword, and there's a terrible wrenching when the earth tore itself apart, creating a great black rift. So he like cuts a big old canyon into the earth, and Sebastian leaps into it and vanishes. What kind of cartoon fucking villain is Sebastian anyway? He's like, oh, you'll never catch me, and then like opens up the earth and jumps into it. Also a casual reminder that all Parabatai feel the same feelings that their partner is going through. So Alec, who just found out that his family is falling apart, is on the other side of the portal in Idris, just standing there, feeling like he's being stabbed. Alec is not having a good time in this book. There's not a moment that Alec is having a good time. So all the bad guys jump in the same chasm right after Sebastian, so the battle ends pretty quickly. And when Clary and Jace are finally united, she finds Jace with Zachariah, and brother Zachariah is trying to put a healing rune on him because it's leaking fire. Yeah, his stab wound isn't leaking blood, it's leaking flames. So enjoy that mental picture. Not really sure how that works, but whatever rune brother Zachariah is using, he's like, listen, hold on tight, spider monkey, this is really gonna hurt. And sure enough, when he starts using the magic, Jace cries out, but instead of the wound healing, it spreads, and suddenly Zachariah's robe catches on fire. The blaze was rising, it was consuming him, and things start to get really weird for Clary. So not only is she watching this monk catching on fire, heavenly fire, right, along with her boyfriend, by the way, she also gets one of her weird rune visions. So remember, Clary has this weird power where she can see runes that are not written in the sacred book. Like, she can make up her own runes, which nobody else can do. Okay, so she's getting a vision. There's nothing she can do with it right now. She's not feeling called to use it, but she's gonna put that in her back pocket for now. And she turns back to see something very, very wrong with brother Zachariah. The Iron Sisters immediately pick up brother Zachariah and whisk him off somewhere, when Clary gets a crazy idea. She's like, everything has just been so complicated lately. Why don't we just go back to the good old days? She rushes to Jace's side, and she's like, listen, trust me. Just trust me on this one. And she throws all of her energy, willpower, and love into writing a rune. And what rune is that? Heal. She uses a fucking healing rune, the rune that they draw like 20 times a day on each other when they get like paper cuts and stuff. It's one of the simplest runes. It's the first rune that you learn, right? As she draws it on Jace's shoulder, she could feel her own energy vanishing into it. Never had she felt more like the stele was an extension of her own veins, that she was writing in her own blood. The last thing she saw as she finished the rune was the great burning whirl of a portal opening before her as she slid into nothingness. Meanwhile, Simon and Raphael have just arrived in Idris, confused as hell, because remember, they were going to be seated at the table during the war meetings, but it sure looks like the war has already started. He's looking around trying to find like anyone who can tell them where they're supposed to go, and because Simon has vampire vision, he sees her before she sees him. His smoking hot girlfriend that isn't really a girlfriend because they haven't DTR'd, Isabel Lightwood. Raphael sees this and he's like, ooh, la bella Isabella. You know that's like never gonna work out between you two, right? And Simon's like, yeah, because she's a vampire and I'm a shadow hunter. And Raphael's like, no, because she's, how you say, out of your league. God bless Simon and Raphael for being the only funny people in this entire book. This is a dark book, all right? We need our shining light Simon back. Isabel eventually does see Simon, and before he could even get a word out, Isabel launches into his arms. She's like,
oh my god, is this a dream? Like, I was just thinking about how much I wanted to see you, and I was wishing that you would come, and did I manifest this?
Oh my god, what are you wearing?
Yeah. Simon, he's still in those leather pants. We then get a scene where back in Isabel's room, Isabel and Simon are about to have a little bit of a steamy scene when they are interrupted by none other than Alec. And Alec is like, can we continue that conversation about dad cheating on mom? And that's kind of when Simon realizes that her over-enthusiasm, shall we say, was likely because she's trying to blow off steam. Girl has had a stressful day. And Simon gets quite upset with that, and they kind of get in a little tussle. And because she was so focused on getting it on with Simon, it slipped her mind that Clary and Jace are in mortal danger. She didn't mention, oh, oops, your best friend went through a portal into what she knows is a giant battle and a trap set by Sebastian, her arch enemy. We haven't heard from them yet. Yeah, I forgot about that. Oops. Simon is so mad he doesn't even have time to yell at her. He just dips. He's running through the city, and he eventually finds like where the portal should have left from, and he sees Clary on the ground. She has just been dragged through the portal. Simon hears a roaring sound in his ear, like rushing blood. She was white. Her still fingers and mouth tinged a dark bluish purple. Her clothes were torn and bloody, and by her hand lay a Morgenstern sword, its blade stamped with stars. Magnus is leaning over her. He's doing something weird. His fingers are glowing blue. He's clearly trying to heal her. Luke grabs Simon. Luke appears out of nowhere and just grabs him because he knows that Simon is going to run for Clary. He's like, you do not have full control over your vampire strength. You're freaking out. You're going to hurt somebody. Stay with the wolves. Boy, stay over here. We don't need to freak out too much because apparently she's definitely not dead. She just used all of her energy to make that healing rune, which, by the way, never mentioned, but yeah, Alec feels all the weird, crazy shit that Jace is going through, so that he erupts in fire and sets Zachariah on fire, and then he gets a healing rune, and it, whatever. Alec is just... man. But they've taken Jace to the bigger hospital. He was able to be moved, but I guess Clary needed to be treated on the ground. And Luke, while he's holding Simon, is like, wait a second. Simon, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be in New York. Like, did you come here because of Jordan? And Simon's like, why? Why would I come here because of Jordan? Is Jordan here? To which Luke says, you don't know? Luke hands him Jordan's pendant that he loves. Jordan wanted you to have this, Luke said. Wanted? Simon's voice rose. Don't you mean wants? Luke took a deep breath. I'm sorry, Simon. Jordan's dead. In the next scene, we're back with Clary, who has just woken up in Amontis's house, safe and sound. Luke and Jocelyn are basically like, hey girl, catch us up, all right? Like, what's been going on with you? And I only mention this because this feels like such an Easter egg that will eventually come into play. So if this sounds like a tangent, perhaps it is. But of course, Clary lets her mom know that she got the Morgenstern family sword back because sure enough, it was Jocelyn who sold it to the weapons dealer. Clary says, like, listen, Mom, I'm a Morgenstern. I can't keep pretending. I'm using this made up name that doesn't even mean anything. Because remember, her mom's name is Fairchild, but she's Clary Frey. Like, her mom made up a fake name and fake identity for her father, remember? So Clary's like, I gotta stop using this fake ass name. But Jocelyn's like, okay, fair, but I didn't just pick a random name. She said that when shadowhunter babies are born, they have that special ceremony where they get their first rune, or they get like that blessing that protects them from demons, right? And there's usually very specific people that they use for that. But because Jocelyn was in hiding at the time that Clary was born, she had to make some special phone calls. It's usually supposed to be a silent brother and an iron sister. So luckily she has the contact of brother Zachariah, but instead of an iron sister, she got a warlock to step in. So this female warlock steps in, and Clary's like, and her last name was Frey? Jocelyn doesn't quite answer the question. She doesn't say yes or no. She just goes, I liked her. She had known loss and pain, but she was strong. And I wanted you to be strong. That's all I've ever wanted. So I don't know, man, keep that, do with it what you will. I don't know. But speaking of brother Zachariah, how's he doing? Because the last time we saw him, he was on fire. So Clary literally is like, he's dead, isn't he? And Jocelyn says, you know what? I don't know. Everybody's being really secretive because they're silent brothers. That's their style. So we don't know how brother Zachariah is. But also, speaking of dead people, almost all of the werewolves were killed. And she's pretty close with Maya, so she kind of asks her mom to leave. She has a good cry. And once she kind of gets all of her tears out, she realizes, holy shit, Simon is probably really messed up. But luckily, speak of the devil, Simon's right outside her door.
Jesus!
Nope, just me.
Come on, Simon.
And they just have a good hug. Once again, great friendships in this book. They're always going to be there for each other. So yeah, they kind of hug it out as best they can. But also, Simon hasn't had blood for 3 days. Remember, he didn't get his Thai food, goddammit, and then he got kidnapped by Maureen, who didn't feed him, so he's been in a cage, and then he gets whisked off to Idris, but everybody's having this panic of like Sebastian attack, so he hasn't exactly prioritized feeding. And let's return to that secret that Maya was keeping from Jordan. Do you remember when they were driving to the headquarters right before Jordan was killed? Maya kept being like, I've really got something important we really need to talk about, Jordan. Maya was going to tell Jordan that she was not in love with him. So if we remember any of their story, basically Maya and Jordan dated, and then Jordan got turned into a werewolf. I think they broke up, kind of. But they had dated, he turned into a werewolf, and then he turned her, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, they have beef. Okay, she's not sure if she can ever forgive him, but it seems like he's really changed, and they were sort of like, we're gonna give this relationship another try, but Maya was gonna tell him in the car that she was not gonna do it anymore. And she's venting all of this to Bat, and Bat is a wolf that she dated for like a hot minute, like more than a hookup, less than a relationship kind of thing, and they're just sharing their guilt and struggles because Bat's also got a lot on his plate. He's technically second in command under Luke, but there's some rumblings going on of people unhappy with the hierarchy. Basically, people are thinking that Luke is more shadowhunter than wolf, so there's this other wolf that is, preparing a coup, let's just say, and Bat is like, that's the last thing I fucking need. All right, I'm just a teenage wolf in New York City, trying to make it work. So nothing good happening on the werewolf front, unfortunately. My notes. So I hadn't read this book in a really, really, really long time. So I had no memory of how this plot was going to go. And so in my notes, I do dictation. I use the voice typing tool. So this is me speaking out loud about what's going to happen next. And I'll just read it to you. I'll try and create the same emotions I was going through. So into our next scene. This is Carrie from the past. Oh my fucking god, I forgot that this happened. This is how it happened? Oh my god. I can't. Okay, shit. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Let's walk this path together, everybody. Okay, let's walk this path together, everybody. Jace doesn't listen to the Silent Brothers. The Silent Brothers are like, Jace, you need to rest. And Jace is like, when do I ever fucking do that? So off he trots out of his hospital bed, and he feels so bad about brother Zachariah, right? He set him on fire. And again, we don't know if he's living. So Jace is like, I've got to find him. I've got to apologize. He gets dressed, gets out of bed, and goes to brother Zachariah's room. Knock, knock, knock. Somebody says, come in. That's weird because he's a silent brother. Emphasis on silent. Remember, every time we've heard brother Zachariah speak, it's through telepathy, right? They speak with their minds. This was a out loud human voice. He opens the door and sees a silhouette sitting by the window. And Jace is like, where's brother Zachariah? I'm right here. A quiet voice, soft, a little out of tune, like a piano that hadn't been played in years. I can't believe this. Oh, my knees are weak. Jace found himself looking at a boy only a few years older than himself. Dark hair, a sharp, delicate face, eyes that seemed young and old at the same time. The runes of the brothers marked his high cheekbones, and as the boy turned, Jace saw a pale edge of a faded rune at the edge of his collar. That was the rune of a Parbatai, whose other half was dead. Are any of you guys with me? Are any of you guys with me? Okay, this soft, angelic teenage boy is like, God fucking damn it. Leave it to the Herondales to always be throwing my life into absolute chaos. It had to be you. It could only be you. I should have known when you walked into my life. Jace Herondale. So, if you aren't putting this together, basically, Brother Zachariah was a shadow hunter. He was a shadow hunter that turned into a silent brother. He took the vows. Heavenly Fire erased him of those vows. Remember how Heavenly Fire basically turns you back to your original form? So it erased all of those runes, all of those whatevers of a silent brother. He's back to his original form, baby. Just this like very attractive young man. Jace looks very confused. So Brother Zachariah is like, listen, I've never been an ordinary silent brother. Okay, he always looked a little different. Like, I don't think technically his lips were sewn shut. I think he was just silent naturally. I don't know. Anyway, he's like, so you know, I've never been normal.
I'm just an ordinary girl. Sometimes I'm lazy.
I can't, I'm dying. He says, I was only brought into the Silent Brotherhood because of dark magic. There was no other way to save my life. And now he's over a century old, but he's back in his springy little body. How nice is that? Sweet deal, I would say. Jace is like, okay, but didn't that really fucking hurt? Like, I've been doused in fire quite a few times at this point. Doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good. Zachariah looks up at him in surprise. He said, you thought about whether or not I was in pain? Yeah, of course, Jace said. Fucking Herondales. Zachariah's voice was a breath, half laughter, half pain. I'd almost forgotten that no other family does so much for love or feels so much guilt for it. Don't carry the weight of the world on you, Jace. It's too heavy, even for a Herondale to bear. If you know, you know. How's the blood run going? Yeah, Simon and Clary out searching for blood. Simon is, let's say, unstable. He's thirsting for blood. He's got this weird issue with Isabel, and one of his best friends just died. Okay, he's also just mourning for Maya, who was his girlfriend, but now friend, you know. Simon loves everybody. He's got a really big heart. He's my favorite character. And he's hurting. Okay, when they meet up with Raphael to get some blood, Raphael just keeps teasing Simon. He keeps making these comments that are like right on that border of teetering from teasing to just being downright mean. When Simon is like, holy shit, Raphael, you're jealous of me. And that shuts him right up. Raphael is not talking anymore. Clary and him are going for a walk. He's literally just drinking his blood as if it's like apple juice. He's got a little straw and he's like slurp, slurp. And they're just having a chat. Obviously, Isabel comes up and Clary's like, yeah, you know, she's still really reeling from this whole cheating stuff and she kind of yelled at her parents about it and it's just a lot. So go easy on her. We're all going through some shit. When Simon just takes off, he's got his little like juice packet and he's just sprinting to the Lightwood house. He just starts screaming Isabel's name. And Clary is like, holy shit, bud, you are a vampire in Shadowhunter territory. Shadowhunters who are on the brink of war. Shadowhunters who are very skittish. So like, shh, shh. Simon is like, Isabel, let down your raven hair. Clary is like, did Raphael poison Simon? What is going on? Isabel eventually leans out her window and is like, shut up, Simon. Oh, hi, Clary. Meanwhile, Simon is like, I'm not gonna shut up. I love you, Isabel Lightwood, even though you hate me. The lights start turning on in the house, in the surrounding houses. He's waking everybody up. He says, Isabel, I love you, and I'm not gonna go away until you tell me that you love me too. And at this point, Helen, because everybody's fucking staying at the Lightwood house, right? Helen leans out the window and is like, can you just tell him you love him? Like, he's scaring the whole street. And then Helen's like, and by the way, like, it really looks like he consumed the blood of a drunk person, which Raphael definitely fucking knew. So this was all a setup. Eventually, Robert Lightwood comes out, and that's when Simon finally, even through a drunken haze, is like, I am not ready to deal with the parent of my beloved, so take me away. And he like falls into Clary's arms and gets dragged into drunk people jail. So Simon is literally only here for comedic relief, unfortunately. And he's doing okay. He's doing okay. After nearly bringing her boyfriend back from the dead once again with her healing powers, and then having to drag her drunk vampire best friend around and finally got him to sleep peacefully on the couch, Clary goes up to her bedroom. She finally pushes the door open. She's like, oh, sweet relief. When there's a figure on her bed. A tall someone with white, fair hair and a sword across his lap. "Hello, sister mine," Sebastian said. We get another long classic Sebastian speech about how he wasn't loved as a child, so it's not his fault that he's so evil, and how he's descended from great demons, and how he and Clary are so alike and they should support each other and love each other. You know the drill, okay? And he said, "And I'm ready to offer you something I'm not ready to offer anyone else." "What's that?" Clary asked. Sebastian smiled. He seemed to blaze for a moment in his own conviction. "Mercy," he said. Clary is sort of like, funny, I wasn't gonna give you the same, and jumps on him. Oh yeah, there's a sibling tussle. It's great. And who's there to break it up? Faster than a speeding bullet. In comes Jace, rips Sebastian off of her, and then we pretty much get the exact same conversation over again. Sebastian is like, "Listen, I'll give you mercy. You've just got to work for me. Like, we're going to win, and we're the same person, okay? Blah, 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 blah." Sebastian's basically like, "Listen, think about it. Let me know." And then before he disappears into thin air, he gives Jace a little kiss. He's literally just like, and dips. A little later, Clary asks him about this. She's like, "All right, so why did my brother just, kiss you?" And Jace was like, "You know what? I actually wasn't even surprised by that." He's like, "It's a reference from the Bible because both of these assholes have the Bible memorized." And he's like, "I think it's a reference of Judas kissing Jesus in the garden. Like, that was a sign of Judas's upcoming betrayal." So yeah, their minds work in mysterious ways. Maybe Sebastian just wanted, could you resist? Could you blame him? But anyway, yeah, we get a Jason Sebastian kiss for you. So, but one thing that they learn, because it kind of came up while they were fighting, is that Sebastian is confused by and extremely scared of heavenly fire. So perhaps there's still a way to defeat him. Meanwhile, we get a millisecond of a scene. Teeny tiny scene. What is happening with the Shadowhunter Council? Remember, we had the whole reason Raphael and Simon are here. We're having a Downworlders meeting. The entire council is there, okay? Long story short, Meliorn is the Fae representative, right? Remember, we don't know that he's evil. I mean, we know he's evil, but like not real bad. He drugs Magnus's wine. And then the meeting room is surrounded by Endarken, and we assume that they attack, but we don't know because we're in Magnus's POV, and all we see is that his world goes dark as he is surrounded by the hooded Endarkened. Cut to curtains. All right, the next morning, the council comes to collect Clary and Jace, bring them to the meeting, and when they get there, Clary can't help but notice there's a lot of people missing. All right, where's Mom? Where's Luke? Where's Raphael? That little shit. That's when the council lets everybody know that everyone at that Downworlder meeting has gone missing. Without a trace, not a struggle. The only clue they had was something written in Angel Iker. Why do I always forget how to pronounce that word? Simply the word veni. So at the end of the previous book, we got a cryptic message from Sebastian that said, "I am coming." Well, now he has come. The meeting, of course, erupts into chaos. We have different factions. Remember, Shadowhunters notoriously racist. So we have one faction that's basically like, not our problem. This was a meeting of mostly Downworlders. We're dealing with Shadowhunter issues right now. Sorry, but like, we're just not interested in helping those Downworlders. Every Shadowhunter for themselves at this point. The other side, of course, is like, no, they are our allies. They are our fellow, well, they're not humans, but we're sharing the earth with these fellow intelligent beings. Have a heart? But no, that's not really how the Shadowhunters work. As we're in the midst of this argument, an Endarkened Shadowhunter just appears. And he's basically like, "Hey guys, so Sebastian sent me real quick. We can nip this in the bud. If you just hand over Sebastian's sister and adopted brother / lover, best friend, who knows? With that Sebastian, everybody's fair game. Okay, basically, if you give us Clary and Jace, we will have world peace. How about it? Robert Lightwood, to his credit, is like, yeah, we don't negotiate with terrorists. To which the Undarkened is like, oh, yeah, okay, well, just so you know, we're going to murder everybody that we took from that meeting. So Clary's mom, Luke, etc. He says that they will, quote, be put to deaths of iron and silver. Whatever that means. So while Clary is taking this all in, because this is a lot, she feels something like brush against her cheek. And then Jace just stands up and literally is like, I volunteer as tribute. That little brush on her cheek was Jace kissing her goodbye and being like, listen, I'll go. Leave Clary out of it. Sebastian wants me. I know. Now the lovebirds are fighting back and forth like,
Jace, you can't go. Claire, blah, 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 blah.
The Undarkened is like, listen, I don't have time for this shit. He says, you have 2 days to decide your fate, and then you will all burn. You will burn in the fires of hell, and the ashes of Edom will cover your bones. And then he erupts into flames and vanishes. After this, we get a very quick scene between Jace and Alec, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. We don't get enough scenes of these parabatai. Like, she really hounds this in, Cassie Clare, in all of the rest of her books, just how precious and special the parabatai bond is. But I feel like Alec and Jace we never really get to see that, so just know. They are closer than brothers, but not in the weird Sebastian kind of way. Yeah, I just wish we got more of them, because... Okay, you know I'm here for the bromance. So they're basically talking about what just happened. And remember, Magnus was taken. So a part of Alec is like, honestly, Jace, I kind of want you to go because I don't want my boyfriend to die. But also he's like, I don't want Jace to die. And Jace certainly isn't going to put Clary at risk. They're basically like, either decision they make is going to rob them of someone they love. And they would never ask either person to do that for them. And it's just this really sweet, loving conversation. And Jace basically says, like, listen, I've never really said this to you, but I never have to worry about somebody looking after me because I always know you're there. And he's basically just thanking him for being his parvatai and best friend and brother and soulmate. And Alec immediately is like, stop talking like that. I don't want to hear it. And Jace is like, okay, why? And Alec says, his expression tight, that's how people talk when they think they're going to die. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. The Shadowhunters have called another meeting. We are going to finally discuss, are we sending these teenagers to their death? Or are we letting all of these other people die, right? This is a literal life and death meeting when there's a knock at the door and Brother Enoch and Brother Zachariah walk in. And the first thing that happens is Isabel leans over to Clary and is like, holy shit, when did he get hot?
Oh God, I fancy a priest.
So yeah, we have a hot priest. Basically. Cassie Clare was ahead of her time.
Hey. Yes, father? Yes, father?
That's all I can say. But Brother Zachariah has business to attend to, so he's ignoring the swooning women. And he's here to let us know that, remember that they had one of those in Darkened and they were basically experimenting on him to see if they could change him back? Well, he's dead. So there goes our one lead. They tried pretty much everything, and their last experiment was to have him try drinking from the mortal cup again, right? Like, that's what made him a Shadowhunter. Just give him another sip. The death, instantaneous. So, By the way, just as a tidbit, Brother Zachariah is very against Jace going, but Jace is still very much on the I volunteer as tribute train. So we're gonna put a pin in that because we have to have a mass funeral. We start meetings. I don't know how the Shadowhunters get anything done. This is why they don't have fucking electricity. They just start meetings and then they're like, all right, well, bye. We've got to hold a funeral. We've got to, I don't know, discuss Brother Zachariah's newly found hotness. Like, nothing gets done. Yeah, we're gonna have a mass funeral. We'll talk about Jace later. I'm personally always on Brother Zachariah's side, but Jace always does his own thing. So we know what's gonna happen. Back in Brooklyn, what's happening with the werewolves? Probably nothing good, because nothing good happens to the werewolves. Let's just spoiler. So remember when I said that guy Bat was kind of freaking out, where he was essentially dealing with a coup and a bunch of werewolves were thinking that Luke is too Shadowhunter to run the werewolves? Well, that day has come. So Rufus, what a name for a werewolf, Rufus has decided that he's going to take over. And the way that people take over in werewolf land is they duel or they fight or whatever. Luke is not there, so his second in command, Bat, poor Bat, has to fight him. And it's a fight to the death. And remember, Maya dated Bat for a hot second, so she's watching this all go down. Like, this is such bullshit because obviously Luke is the best leader we've got. And also, oh my God, this guy that I kind of had a crush on for, you know, a millisecond. Don't want him to die. Certainly don't want the show to be run by Rufus. Speaking of Maya, we got this really short scene that's probably gonna be important where she met a vampire named Lily, like just on the street. This girl comes up to her and I'm like, hi, I'm a vampire named Lily. And she says something cryptic. Lily is like, you need to get your pack shit together because this is a mess and we need to organize. So let me know when you're in charge. All right? Okay. But lo and behold, we are in the middle of Prospect Park. The strangest things happen in Brooklyn, I gotta tell you. Rufus is gearing up to fight Bat again, to the death. Bat holds his own, but it's very clear that the killing blow is about to be dealt when Maya jumps in the ring. She's like, my best friend almost got killed. My boyfriend that I was going to break up with got killed. This guy who was my boyfriend for a second is about to get killed. I'm not doing this anymore. I challenge you, Rufus. Do you think you're wolf enough to hit a girl? Everyone is sort of like, Maya, this is a really bad idea. But Rufus, who is like lost his mind to the fight, you know, the call of the battle, he has no qualms with fighting a teenage girl. He just throws himself at her. He's like, duel accepted, bam. Doesn't even give her a second. Maya flings dirt into his face. She's just got a handful of dirt and just goes like, weirdly, it's enough to jostle him. He kind of staggers back. Maya then slams her boot into his foot, somehow breaks all the bones in his body. Then she just jams her claws into his eyes. Maya! A scream ripped from his throat, quickly cut off as he slumped backwards, collapsing onto the grass with a loud crash that made her think of a tree falling. She looked down at her hand. It was covered in blood and smears of liquid brain matter. All right, so she won the battle, for better or for worse. And as she's like getting her bearings, Bat, who was laying on the ground, having almost been killed, is just like, damn, girl, I didn't know you could fight dirty. And she turns to him and is like, yeah, buddy, I didn't know your name was Bartholomew. Because his real name had to be used in the duel. So Batty, Bartholomew. Anyway, guess who's Queen Bee? Back in Idris, Clary and Isabel are having a cute little moment in Isabel's room when all of a sudden she screams and she's like, there's a face in the window. Crisis quickly averted when Emma crawls in through the open window. She's like, hey girls, we need to talk. And remember, she's 12, okay? Emma's like, gather the boys, we need to organize. Turns out once she gets everybody together, she's like, listen, I was at the meeting because everyone was at that fucking meeting. And she's like, I actually paid attention to what the Shadowhunter said. Obviously you didn't, since nobody seems to be putting two and two together and I'm 12. Did you not hear him say ashes of Edom? And Alec is like, oh, you don't need to be confused. Like, Edom is just another name for hell. Don't worry, girl. You'll be fine. Like, nothing to be scared of. And Emma is like, can you shut up? She's like, I might be 12, but I'm not scared. I'm scared of your lack of comprehension skills, perhaps. Did nobody pay attention in Shadowhunter school? She's like, Edom is a real place. They kept talking about it when they were attacking the LA Institute. I kept hearing the Shadowhunters say, Edom this. Let's go back to Edom. How's the weather in Edom? And they were going to bring Mark there. She's like, it's a real place. It's not just a funny extra name for hell. She's like, normally I would go to the Clave for this, but I think the Clave and the Council are idiots. And strangely enough, you guys are somehow less idiots. So what are we gonna do? And then Clary decides to turn on her brain and she's like, oh, you're right. I've heard Sebastian talk about Edom many times. That's where Lilith is the queen of. So sometimes instead of saying queen of hell, they call her the queen of Edom. And so Emma is like, listen, it's past my bedtime. It seems like you guys finally put two and two together. I'm gonna go. And she just climbs back out the window, leaving our team with this vital information. Saving the world. Emma Carstairs. Don't you forget it. Don't let anyone tell you differently. So thanks to Emma, the team ends up talking about all the different dimensions of hell. Turns out Alec is a little whiz kid. Where was this for half of the series? Yeah, he knows everything there is to know about anything, I guess. So he's giving us Demon Dimension 101. Turns out there's a ton of them. We mostly know hell, but that's just one dimension of the demon realm, right? It's not like they can just go marching into a demon dimension. Shadowhunters, humans, we can't do that. But why can Sebastian? Likely because remember, he was created basically using Lilith's blood. He's like 99% demon at this point. So he can freely go in and out. But obviously we're not going to turn ourselves into demons. So how else can we get into the realm? Because they're obviously planning to do a reconnaissance mission. We're going to do it ourselves. We don't negotiate negotiate with terrorists. We're gonna go rescue our captives. Alec, full of fun facts, is like, actually guys, way back in the day, there used to be an entrance to the demon realm. And he's like, oh yeah, it was, in the Sealy court. Jace is like, well, how come Clary can't just make a portal into the demon realm? And Clary's like, wow, well, I appreciate that you think I'm so good at my job, but I can barely make portals from in the same dimension. I'm not gonna make one from our dimension into a demon dimension. I'm not gonna risk all your lives. And Jace is like, well, number one, you'd only be risking my life because no way in hell are you guys coming with me. Number two, that's fine, Clary. Just make me a portal to the Sealy court and I'll take it from there. The room erupts. Everyone is like,
You think you're going alone? You are absolutely not going to need us. You can't go by yourself.
Isabel is like listing it out on her finger. She's like, listen, you need Alec's backup. You need Clary's rune power, Simon's vampire strength. Also, I just kind of need him for moral support. And you need me for the good looks, the comedic quips, you know, my whip. I know, Jace said softly. I know I need you. There's this moment, like heavy silence in the room where they're just like, yeah, man, we need each other. Like, it's filled with so much love. And then Jace is like, fuck it, we need supplies. Very quickly, when they're ready, they portal to the Sealy court right outside the throne room. And coincidentally, how handy, they just overhear the Sealy queen talking about how they're working with Sebastian and they kidnapped all the downworlders and we're actually the bad guys and Meliorn is such a traitor. Come on. Come on. They come out of the shadows. There's like a quick tussle with the queen and Alec just straight up shoots Meliorn dead. He takes out his bow and arrow and he's like, I can't fucking deal with this guy anymore. Pew. Meliorn's out. They surround the queen and they're like, all right, queen, you're next. We'll kill you if you don't tell us how to get to Edom. And Clary can't help but notice that the queen looks really relieved. She's like, oh, that's all you want? I can absolutely get you to Edom. Sure thing. She starts just straight up leading him down the hallway and Simon leans over to Clary and is like, I really hate to say it, but that was way too easy. And Simon is always the voice of reason. Simon's always like, I want to see the dead body. I don't like things that come too easy. You know, Simon knows. Clary is like, don't worry, Simon. I don't think the issue is that it's too easy. I just think, you know, the queen thinks we're going to die in there. And Simon is like, are we? And Clary's just like, I don't know. And just speeds up her pace to walk with the others. So Simon is just like, they eventually get to this doorway and the queen is like, all right, here it is. See you later. Good luck. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell anybody. And on one hand, it's like, oh good, Sebastian's not going to, like, maybe we're one step ahead of Sebastian. But on the other hand, that means she's not going to tell the Clave or like any of the Shadowhunters. So no one knows where they are. And remember, Emma was the only one in that entire fucking country that understood the whole Edom clue. So if something goes wrong, they are very much alone. So they're walking down this dark path for a while when they finally stumble upon a body. It's alive, but it's been roughed up. And that body belongs to our very own Mark Blackthorn. So luckily, remember, Clary kind of asked Emma for details about Mark. She's like, yeah, you know, he kind of looks like Helen. He's this tall. He's blah, 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 blah. So immediately Clary is like, ooh, Mark, half fae, half Shadowhunter. And lucky for him, they're able to tell him, like, listen, most of your family survived. They're okay. They're in Idris. But as they're telling him this, they can't help but notice that his eyes are mismatched. They're like kind of hazy. Maybe one pupil is bigger than the other. Like some Mark's going through it. Okay. And remember, he was sentenced to go be in the Wild Hunt and he was kidnapped by the Undarken. So like we have no idea what this boy has been through. And I guess while he was delivered to the Fae, he just assumed his whole family was dead. So he drank a little bit of the fairy wine because he just didn't give a shit what happened to him anymore. And so now he like well and truly belongs to the Fae for as long as they'll keep him. And they're like, listen, we can't take you to hell with us, but if you get out, if you find a way to make any kind of contact with the Shadowhunters, just tell them that the Fae are working against them. We believe you. We know you're a good guy. We're going to do everything in our power to make sure you see your family again. And they just go their separate ways. The kid's into hell. Mark, wherever the hell he's headed, hopefully to save the world. And you know what's happening back in the Sealy court, by the way? The queen gets back out of the hallway and immediately calls up Sebastian and is like, you won't believe who I just let into Edom. And so when she talked to the gang about like, I won't tell anyone where you went, her actual words were, I won't tell anyone you came to the Sealy court. She actually didn't say anything about Edom. So gets Seabass on the phone and is like, buddy, I got them right where you want them. Sebastian just smiled, his eyes flickering. I'm so glad. Let them come. Part 2. That world inverted. We're with Clary, who is standing on a gently sloping hill that leads up to this gorgeous, like, yellow stone manor house, okay? And she just knows in her heart that this is the Fairchild Manor, the manor that she never got to grow up in. And as she's looking at the house, her mom and Luke come out. And Jocelyn is like, oh my god, Clary, thank god you're here. It's almost time. She hears this noise behind her, so she turns around. And who's walking up the gravel walkway but Sebastian? And everybody's calling him Jonathan. He's in a nice little suit. Jocelyn and Luke are like, oh, Jonathan, don't you look so cute in your little suit? You know, he seems really happy. And that's weird. But before Clary can say anything, this little red-headed girl just like rocket ships into his arms. And again, Clary just knows who this is. She just feels it in her gut. She's like, that's my little sister, Valentina. Pardon? And what is Clary going to be late to? Her wedding. And I know what you're thinking. I just mentioned that Sebastian's in a suit. Don't worry. She is in fact marrying none other than Jace Herondale. Clary looks shocked. Like somebody was like, you're late for your wedding. And Clary's like, And Sebastian kind of pulls her aside and is like, listen, all right, I love Jace. But if you're getting cold feet, I'm always on your side, sis. So you just let me know. I'll have the getaway car out back. But he's also like, but really, sis, I don't want to miss this wedding because I get to see Isabel Lightwood in a strapless dress that you picked out for your maid of honor. I really don't want to miss that. Can you just please get married? And Clary is like, wait, you like Isabel? Like, how does Simon feel about this? And Sebastian's like, Clary, who's Simon? Clary felt the ground give way under her. The lawn, the mansion, the boy and girl on the grass flew away from her, and she hit the ground hard, rolling to her side, choking. Let that settle. Whatever that was. Where's Simon? Simon is back in New York. In fact, he's looking over Central Park from the window of a penthouse. He just got a delivery of flowers from his mom, congratulating him on a great gig. And the card just says, like, I love you. I'm proud of you. And at first he's like, that's weird. My mom wouldn't send hydrangeas. She knows I don't like hydrangeas. Such a random detail. But then he blinks and all of a sudden the hydrangeas turn into roses. And he's like, oh, okay. He hears a rattling of keys from the hallway, and then his front door swings open, and Clary walks in, half laughing, half out of breath as usual. Apparently she had to fight through a crowd of fans to get into their apartment, and she just runs into his arms, and Simon leans in to kiss her, just like he did every day when she came home. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, he said. God, I really love you, Isabel. He felt Clary stiffen in his arms, and the world around him seemed to sprout black lines, like shattered glass. Isabel, you say? Where's she? Isabel walks into her apartment. Immediately, hands cover her eyes from behind, saying, don't look, don't look. Simon is leading her through the apartment that they share together. They filled it with their favorite parts of each other, so covered with Simon's guitars and drumsticks, and Isabel has her weapons and her cats. And when they finally get to the kitchen, he removes his hands and yells, surprise! And her whole family is there. Her parents, Alec, Jace, Clary, the whole gang. Clary's holding a sign that's written clumsily, like, happy birthday, Isabel. Shadowhunters don't really count birthdays, but Simon really wanted to do this for her. She turns to her little brother Max and is like, how old do you think I am? And Max is like, 22? I counted. That makes her pause. She looks down at the 9-year-old little brother she loves and is like, if I'm 22, you'd be 15. Why are you 9? Max just looks up at her and is like, I'm always 9. She felt her knees give. She sank to the ground where there was no laughter around her. No pretty little kitchen, only gray, powdery ash and black rock. Meanwhile in Idris, the Hall of Accords is decked out with blue banners. All the symbolism of the Lightwood family, and there's this huge long banquet table filled with important people and swords and flowers and things congratulating Alexander Gideon Lightwood, who single-handedly destroyed the forces of the Undarkened and who defeated in battle the son of Valentine Morgenstern. Robert Lightwood stands up and is like, ladies and gentlemen, so proud to introduce you to my son. He saved the world. He's the best shadow hunter there is. And happiness upon happiness, I'm happy to announce that he is engaged to his partner, Magnus Bane, and I fully support them. Do you see what's happening here? Do you see what's happening? This is when Jace leans over and is like, damn, you know, rotten timing, but I just want to let you know I've kind of always had a crush on you. And Alec is like, Clary leans in on Alec's other side and is like, yeah, actually, it would be kind of hot if you guys got together. Alec is like, well, we're par, we can't. When Magnus appears and puts his fingers on Alec's lips to shut him up and is like, babe, this isn't real. Wake up. This isn't real. Alec is like, oh, what is going on actually? Time out. I can't deal with this. Magnus is like, you came into a demon realm. There's probably a demon around that feeds off of dreams, okay? Get it together, man. Wake up. You're probably just seeing your deepest, darkest wishes. Alec is like, this is my deepest, darkest wish? And Magnus is like, babe, people celebrating you, your dad approving of you, your first crush saying that he has a crush on you, marrying me? Tell me that's not your dream situation. Somehow that gives him the strength to pull himself out of the dream. Sure enough, he wakes up, eyes open, there's a demon lurking over him, feeding off of his dreams. Alec is quick enough to kill him immediately, and he finds his friends all around him sitting in various states of confusion and distraught. Clary immediately crawls over to Jace and gives him a hug and is like, whatever you saw, don't worry, babe. It was just a dream. It was just a demon. You're gonna be fine. And Jace is sitting there like, yeah, I didn't see anything. Meanwhile, Magnus in real life is trying to make sure that Raphael doesn't rip his hand off because they're trying to get Magnus out of his shackles because remember, all of these guys were just kidnapped. So Magnus, Luke, and Raphael are being held together in the dungeon. They are very sure that they are in Edom. Like, they know where they are. So at least we know as the reader that the gang is on the right path. And Magnus is the only one that's chained because he's the only one that has magic and he needs his hands to use magic. So anyway, the guys are trying to get him out of his shackles. Where's Clary's mom? She's in a separate dungeon because she's the ultimate hostage. He knows Clary will walk literally through hell to get her mom back. But the kids are on the move after they recovered from their weird fantasies that we all had to go through with them. They've been walking in hell for what feels like hours. And they're noticing that their runes are fading faster than normal. So they put on tracking runes or healing runes or anything like that, and they are fading way faster. But more than runes, what they realize they need is sleep. So Jace and Alec are tasked with finding a safe place in hell to get a little shut-eye, and Clary kind of wanders off because she just needs to clear her head. That was a lot. We get another cute best friend moment of Simon and Clary. He comes to find her and just be like, listen, I haven't even asked, like, are you okay? And Clary's like, yeah, honestly, no. But we just gotta keep going. And they're both just kind of like, yeah. All of a sudden, this dark piece of cloud detaches itself from the sky, and there's a flash of wings and teeth and a dozen red eyes. And then this cloud thing picks up Jace, and Jace is just like dangling. He's not fighting back. He's just motionless, dangling, being picked up by this weird winged teethed cloud. And Clary's vision just goes white. She just starts screaming at Alec like, shoot the thing. And Alec is like, it's moving so fast, I'm gonna hit Jace. And Isabel is like, maybe I can try to whip it. I don't care if I whip Jace. But luckily Alec somehow manages to hit it with an arrow, and that helps Jace wake up. The reason he was motionless is because he was like knocked out, unconscious. So somehow Jace wakes up, is able to stab the thing, and it falls from the sky with Jace. So ouch. But stranger still, the demon didn't disappear. So let's go back to when the werewolves were fighting that one shadow hunter and they had to like clean up his body, right? Demons are supposed to go poof, right? Shadow hunters don't go poof. But the reasons that the demons turn into dust or whatever is because when you kill them, they don't technically die. They just go back to the demon realm. So when you kill a demon in the demon realm, there's nowhere for them to go back to. So now they've just got a dead body on their hands, which is honestly not their biggest problem. And Clary's pissed that Jace isn't more upset that he just got abducted. She's like, you just got abducted by a flying demon death turtle and you're acting like everything's okay. And Jace just starts cracking up. He's like, Clary, literally only you would come up with the imagery of a demon death turtle.
Sometimes it bothers me how calm Phil is under pressure. It's like I'm the one who's overreacting.
That's good. Let it out.
I'm going to kill you.
But Jace promises that he's fine. So Moving on, another day. They decide that their best bet of a safe place to sleep would be one of these caves that they found, which to me sounds like a horrible idea. But I guess if attacks are mainly coming from the sky, a cave sounds like a good thing. But first, because as Emma said, they're the lesser of all the idiots in this book, they decide that they need to go check the tunnels first before they can get any shut-eye. Let's just see what's in this cave. So Alec is forced to stay at the mouth of the cave and start a fire because Isabel and Simon are going to take one tunnel and Clary and Jace are going to take the other. And Alec is like, I just don't want to think about it. I know both couples are going to hook up in these tunnels. I just hope it doesn't echo. We get a really interesting conversation between Jace and Clary, basically talking about like what a crazy turn Clary's life has taken. Like, again, this has been maybe a year, if it's been a year at all, since she's even discovered what a shadowhunter is. And they get on the topic of art and Clary like not really having time to draw anymore. Jace is like, I think that's really important. He said that shadowhunters believe they've got some kind of warrior drive that pushes out any other drive that they have. But Jace is like, I think it's important to keep, like, if there's something you're passionate about that isn't fighting demons, you know, there's got to be something good just on a soul level for you. So he really is like, Clary, when we get through with this, like, I want you to go back to art. I want you to do what you love, which is sweet. And in case you're wondering about Alex's fear of everybody hooking up, it seems like Jace has even less control over his powers down here, so we don't have to worry about the Jace and Clary hookup situation. And Jace is like, why don't we head back to Alec, quote, before he decides Isabel and Simon are having sex off in the caves and starts freaking out. To which promptly the scene cuts to Simon, who is talking to Isabel, and he's like, everybody thinks we're off having sex and they're probably freaking out. To which Isabel is basically like, no, you are way too responsible to have sex in a cave surrounded by demons. You would not be able to chill out for a second. And even though this banter seems kind of cute, Isabel is actually being really snappy with Simon. She's been just kind of off. And he's like, can we talk about this? Like, you always have an attitude, but like, this is a special flavor. So like, speak on it. What's going on? And basically, even though Simon literally drunkenly yelled his love of Isabel to the entire country of Idris, she still, like, there's a part of her that still really believes that he loves Clary in a non-platonic way. And Simon gives a good answer. He's like, honestly, Isabel, if you're asking me to choose between you and my best friend, like, I'm not gonna choose, because no one who really loves me would ever ask me that. If you really loved me, you would trust me. And then he tells her about his dream. He was like, listen, in our weird demon fantasies, the reason I woke up, the reason why I knew that this was a dream and not reality is because being with Clary felt wrong. He's like, I love you. And that's pretty much all it takes for Isabel to shove him up against the cave wall. And he tries to be like, I really love, and she cuts him off, just literally slaps his arm and is like, not now. As luck would have it, as it always is with these two. Unfortunately, they are interrupted by a very scary sound. It's coming from a part of a tunnel they haven't explored yet. And when they get there, there's a little hole in the cave, and they peek out and they see what they can only describe as a demon city, which sounds like very bad news. So neither couple gets to blow off steam. They turn back to tell Alec. Back in Idris, we get this really cute scene, which again is just set up for the next series, but it's a very cute scene of Emma and Julian just kind of catching up. Like, remember, they were just orphaned, okay? And they are 12, 13 years old, going through it. So they finally kind of check in with each other, and they're just so nice to each other. They're so loving. It's so great. But they're interrupted when one of the younger siblings comes running into the room and is like, there's something weird. You should come investigate. Please come with me to my room. And Julian is expecting like monster under the bed, whatever. But what he finds instead is a small acorn placed on the windowsill. And for most people that would just be like, pesky squirrel, I don't know. But to the Blackthorns, who have a few fae in their family, he gets the message right away. And so we don't know how, but Mark Blackthorn somehow got the warning across, and Julian, gets the message. So good for you, Mark. Good for you. But back to the women who are getting shit done. Okay, back to Maya. She's decided we can't do this without Maureen. Okay, I'm gonna talk to this crazy lady face to face. But within a few seconds, Maya realizes that Maureen is only going to ally with Sebastian because Sebastian has basically promised her Simon, and that's the only thing Maureen cares about. Very quickly, Maya is like, oh, this isn't gonna work. So Maya tries a different tactic. She's like, okay, I guess we're allying with Sebastian then. She's like, I really want to ally with you, Maureen. Like, the werewolves and the vampires, we're on the same side. Come on, girl, like, let's make it official. Let's make a blood oath. And in order to make a blood oath, it means that Maureen needs to bite Maya and Maya needs to whatever. And Maureen is like, oh, great. Like, more people are behind me to help get Simon back. This is fantastic. She's not thinking this through. Okay? Maureen plays checkers. All right? Maya's doing the 5D chess. So Maureen goes to take a little nibble out of Maya when she suddenly gets up, collapses, and turns into a pile of dust. Rewind the tape. What? So turns out, like I said, 5D chess. All right, my girl's been plotting, my girl's been planning. Maureen is insane. That's the only thing we can count on in this entire book. So Maya and Lily came up with a little plan. Remember how we learned that vampires can take on the effects of the blood that they drank? So like Simon got drunk because he drank a drunk person's blood, right? Well, what would happen if Maya has only been consuming holy water for a few weeks and Maureen gets a big old gulp of that? Yeah, they just killed Maureen. And with that, somehow, Lily is head of the vampires, Maya is head of the werewolves. We've got an allyship on our hands. Get ready, Simon. Who run the world? Meanwhile, Cassie Clare must have heard me complaining about not enough Jace and Alec scenes because we get another one. It's just a cute bonding moment. Honestly, Alec is going through a lot of shit, right? So he's dealing with every physical pain that Jace suffers, Alec suffers. He broke up with the love of his life, Magnus, who is currently kidnapped and is probably going to be put to death. And he just found out that his dad cheated on his mom. Like, there's just, everything is piling up. Everything that other characters are experiencing individually, Alec gets to experience them all at once. So, and at one point Alec is like, and I'm so mad that I even care what my dad thinks. Like, remember, his dad is super homophobic and he's like, why do I even care so much about his opinion? Like, the demon dream, his deepest, darkest fantasy was like getting approval from his father, right? And Alec is like, I can't believe I'm such an idiot. And Jace is like, brother, are you forgetting that my father was literally a mass murderer and I still give a shit what he thinks about me? And maybe you're being too hard on your dad. Like, he was always really nice to me. And Alec was like, Jace, of course he liked you. You're heterosexual and have low expectations for father figures. And Jace is like, put that on my gravestone. Heterosexual and had low expectations. But they keep talking. It comes up about how Alec has always felt very second best to Jace, to which Jace is like, are you okay? Like, you have, quote, the truest heart of anyone I've ever known and the strongest faith in other people. He said, the best thing Valentine ever did for me was send me to you. Your parents, I mean, sure. But if it hadn't been for you, I would have ended up like Sebastian. I would have never known love. But before we can get too much bromance, Jace gets distracted. He's like, do you see that out there on the horizon? Something that shouldn't be there? He sees like light sparkling off of something in the distance. So of course he goes to check, just wanders through hell because he's Jace Herondale Lightwood Wayland. And he of course comes across a dark figure, and this dark figure is Magdalena, who is a character I honestly forget. She was like an iron sister that betrayed her sisters. Jace knows her, maybe killed her, maybe she's still alive. Anyway, she's an op. Okay, we don't like Magdalena. Why is she here? She's here to torment Jace because somehow she is like, I know what vision you saw when the dream demon came a-callin'. So remember, we saw Simon, Isabel, Alec, and Clary's dreams of like their deepest, darkest secrets. And Jace was like, I didn't see anything. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Fucking liar. Magdalena is like, yeah, I know what you saw. She said, you saw it, didn't you? This burned land, all destruction, and you ruling over it. That was your vision, wasn't it? That was the wish of your heart. So apparently Jace saw himself as king of hell, king of Edom. And Jace gets so panicked that anybody knows this that he like accidentally loses control of his powers, because remember, he's been having a really hard time in the demon dimension. Oops, he lets it slip and he like accidentally kills Magdalena again? Question mark. Honestly, guys, it's, you know, the details in this very moment don't matter. I'm so sorry. But yeah, somehow he burns Magdalena and watches as she twists and writhes, becoming something hideous, tentacled, and repulsive before turning into ashes with a scream. All right. And the rest of the gang hears this. They're running to Jace immediately. Alec is like, don't worry. Like, I would have felt it if he's dead, but something is very, very wrong. Very wrong indeed, because once they get to Jace, he's still surrounded by fire. He has not reeled it in. He has not gained control over his magic. They're just like, okay, what do we do? When Clary gets another one of her visions of the runes, and she's looking at it and she's like, the rune looks like it has wings, but maybe I'm wrong. And she's doing all of this mental math that we as the reader are not privy to. We're just sort of like, let her cook, let Clary do her thing. When somehow she riddles it out that the rune doesn't have wings, it's a sword. How did we get those confused? This isn't illustrated. I don't know. Okay? But she comes to some kind of conclusion and decides to just jump into the flames. Okay. Jace is immediately like, do not touch me, girl. He is like, I just killed somebody. I don't got control. Can you just like hop back to the other side of the firewall, please? Like, I don't know what's happening. He is panicked. When Clary just grabs him, gives him a big old smooch. Apparently his mouth is, quote, hot and dry. And she just whispers, trust me, and grabs her blade.
Trust me.
Now, Isabel, Simon, and Alec are watching this go down from a distance, and they're just like, as usual, these crazy kids. When Alec starts to freak out because he can feel his Parabatai rune changing in some way. Jace isn't dead, but like something is very, very, very wrong. So they run for the flames too. They're like, listen, if Clary can do it, we can do it. And as they're running to the wall of fire, they notice the flames going down. They watch as the fire dwindled, a circle of slightly darkened earth where the flames had burned. And inside it, two figures. They were hard to see through the smoke, but it was clear they were alive. Clary was standing, Jace kneeling in front of her, his hands in hers, almost as if he were being knighted. There was something ritualistic about the position, something that spoke of strange old magic. They stood and began walking up the path. So this is super annoying, but basically Clary and Jace found a way to get his magic under control, and they're being really secretive about it. And Jace is like, listen, trust me guys, I've mastered my powers now. So the reader, Alec, Isabel, and Simon do not know what's going on. How handy to have multiple POVs. So yeah, we aren't sure, but we're just supposed to trust these fucking goofballs as usual to save the world. Don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry about it. And also, that woman, Magdalena, it wasn't her. That's why I said the details don't matter. I don't remember who she was. I'm going to be real honest. That was just a demon that took on the features of Magdalena, which is scary, but it was just another trick of hell, those pesky demons. Okay? Now, after that, a couple things happen in rapid succession. So I got to look at my notes. Number 1, Gia. All right? The council gets Mark's warning. Julian delivered whatever the acorn said, and she promises that she's going to try to rescue Mark from the wild hunt because he's going to be trapped there for potentially hundreds of years. Okay. And while they're talking, this is happening in Gia's office, by the way. Emma notices that there's a file with her name on it, or with her last name at least. And Emma's like, ooh, baby, give me some of that. And she just swipes it. Emma, our little troublemaker, okay? Next up, we still have Luke, Raphael, and Magnus stuck in the dungeon. And Magnus is starting to get really sick. Raphael is like, what can we do? What can we do to help you, you know? And this is when Magnus lets us in on some family history, because we don't know anything about Magnus, other than the fact that warlocks are all half demon. That can't come into play here, could it? Well, turns out Edom, the realm that they are in, the realm that our gang is also in, is actually Magnus's father's realm. So he is the son of one of the like princes of hell, basically. So, and apparently Daddy really wants a reunion, so he's like making Magnus sick to force Magnus to come ask him for help to like heal him. But Magnus is like, babe, I'm shackled in a dungeon. Okay, if you really want to see me, you know, could use a little help. But for whatever reason, Magnus absolutely does not want to be in contact with his father. And eventually he just passes out. And after Magnus passes out, Raphael tells Luke a story about how him and Magnus have a really weird connection. So apparently when Raphael was turned into a vampire, Raphael's mother brought him to Magnus to be like, can you undo this? Can you help him? Whatever. And Magnus really tried his best, but it was, you know, Raphael was past the point of no return. But Raphael still feels like he really owes Magnus his life. Like he was the one who helped him kind of become a baby vampire and not go crazy like Maureen. And he told Luke, like, listen, if Magnus doesn't want to go near his dad, trust me, we do not want to go near his dad. And what about Mama Bear? Where's Jocelyn? Remember, she's being held separately from the other prisoners. She's currently trying to squeeze her way out of a window. She got a cell with a window. Nice for her. And yeah, she's trying to climb out of it because that always works. And she's like halfway out the window when Sebastian waltzes in and is like, Mother dearest, stop what you're doing. I have something to show you. And what does he want to show her? His plans. Because again, worst villain in the world. Just let everybody know everything that you're doing all the time, right? He just thinks that he's destined to win, so he doesn't take very obvious precautions. So he takes Jocelyn out of the cell to see his new throne room. And there are these 2 thrones in this big empty room. And he's like, I've decided that from here, I will not only rule hell, but I will rule the human realm. Insert evil villain laugh here. And then he's like, and I'm happy to announce that there's not a single drop of you left in me. He's like, I'm 100% evil, baby. Like, he's like, I relinquish my claim of you being my mother. Like, there's none of your influence. You did nothing. You have no control over me whatsoever. And Jocelyn's looking at the thrones and she's like, there's two thrones. You still want Clary? And Sebastian's like, well, of course I'm gonna rule the world with Clary, my beloved. And Jocelyn's like, yeah, that need to be loved or loving in return, you sure got that from me. A 100% evil person wouldn't give a shit, would they, Sebastian? You still need a mother's love. Back in Edom the next morning, the gang decides to go look at that city that Isabel and Simon found. And as they get closer to it, they realize that down to the last detail, this city is Alicante. It's the capital of Idris. Mirror demon version. When they make it into the city, they decide the first place they want to go is the Hall of Accords, and the door is covered in this weird language. And luckily, because like I said, Alec is the only one who paid attention in school, Alec is able to read it. Turns out he's a polyglot, can read like every language known to man, and he just decodes the demon alphabet. And it's basically just the history of demon kind, or like the realm of Edom, I guess. And it keeps mentioning this thing called a skeptron, which I wish it was called anything else. Cassie, anything else. But yeah, it's called a skeptron, and it's some kind of weapon that holds off demons. It's somehow different from like a shadowhunters' blessed blades is what they use. Like they have all of their weapons are named after angels and they have this like holy power in them. A skeptron is different. Okay. And they enter the Hall of Accords and they're like, okay, cool. We'll keep that in mind. And then they just walk inside. Immediately, they see a sculpture of like a shadowhunter or something holding the skeptron, whether it's a replica or the real thing. And Simon is in his element. He's like, guys, okay, I know what this is. I've played a lot of D&D, and let me tell you. He's like, anytime we're on a campaign and we see the object that we are all searching for, it is 100% of the time a trap. And I'm not falling for this. Jace, what are you doing? Jace gives no shits. Jace does not play D&D. Let's just say that. He just climbs up the sculpture and snatches the skeptron. Simon is just like, surprise, surprise. As he's climbing down with his newfound weapon in his hand, the room is filled with an ear-splitting noise. God damn it, Jace shouted over the noise. I hate when Simon's right. And sure enough, a wave of demons comes through every door, every corridor, every window. There is a very quick but very intense battle scene. They do manage to kill all of the demons, but Izzy has some really weird cut in her leg. looks like a shark bite, which isn't any good. And remember, we've already learned that the runes aren't working as they should. So even if they could put healing runes on Isabel, they're fading before they can do any good. Alec is like, what do we do? Trying every rune that there is. Simon is standing there like, guys, I hear wings. Sounds like the second wave of demons is coming. And Clary is just like, fuck it, I'm gonna make a portal. Remember how she was like, yeah, I don't make portals in between two different dimensions because I'd probably rip us all in half. She's like, at this point, worth a shot. Okay. While the gang is freaking out, they quickly come to the realization that runes aren't going to help Isabel anyway because she is being poisoned by demon poison. She got bitten by a demon and the venom is spreading through her veins in a way that no rune will really help. Clary decides to put all her energy into making the portal because she's like, you know, if it doesn't work here, maybe there's something someone can do outside of the demon realm, right? Like, let's just get her to Idris. Let's get her to safety. Maybe we can help her. Simon takes a look at Alec and his fangs snap out, sharp and white. He raises his own wrist to his mouth and tears at it, slicing open the veins. He held his wrist over the gash on Isabel's leg and let his blood run down his fingers, spattering onto her, covering the wound. Alec is like, what the fuck are you doing to my sister? Like, lunging at him. And Jace is like, no, wait. I've heard about this. Isabel has now gone unconscious, but her skin is beginning to knit itself back together. When her eyes open, they're wide and dark. Simon slumped against the wall, his own eyes fluttering shut in exhaustion. Speaking of vampires, though, let's check in with Raphael again. We get this really quick scene, which is so bizarre. Basically, Sebastian comes back into the dungeons to like check on the boys, and he decides, for some reason, he wants Raphael on his side. I feel like he thinks Raphael is maybe the weakest link out of like between Luke and Magnus. Obviously, Raphael has less loyalty. So he's trying to get Raphael to join his side, and obviously he needs proof that Raphael is loyal. So he hands Raphael a knife and is just like, kill the warlock. And remember, we just learned that Raphael thinks that he owes Magnus his life, right? So I'm thinking, Cassie, Claire, I've read your books before. I know that this is a setup. I know that they've got some master plan going on. But Raphael takes the knife. He goes to stab Magnus when all of a sudden he turns around and he's like, guys, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I won't do it. He looks at Sebastian. He's like, I'm sorry, man. And without hesitation, Sebastian just stabs him in the heart. And curtains on that scene. So goodbye, Raphael. Back in Manhattan, as usual, this storyline is messy. We're jumping around all over the place. What is Maya up to? For some reason, one of the werewolves or the vampires, whoever it is, somebody on their team has captured a demon. And remember, they don't have the swords and the blades and all that fancy stuff that shadowhunters have, so they have a rougher time killing demons. So they just captured one, and they're kind of like experimenting how best to kill it when they realize that demons like to talk. And as we know, loose lips sink ships. And so they're just basically getting as much information out of him as possible. The demon is bragging. He's like, it doesn't matter what you do to me. It doesn't matter how many weapons you have. They're going to attack tomorrow night, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the werewolves are like, oh no, tomorrow night? Where exactly? How many people? When? Who? Yeah, that super top secret attack that Sebastian is trying to keep from everybody. You just gave us all the details? Cool. Back with the gang, don't worry, Isabel is going to be A-okay. She's just sleeping it off. This is when Alec and Simon get their one and only bonding moment where Alec is like, hey man, it's gross that you like my sister, but thanks for saving her. And Simon's trying to say, oh, no problem, when he is just racked with this horrible feeling. And it's similar to the Parvati bond, but the vampire that just made him is dead. So when Raphael gets stabbed, Simon feels it. And on top of that, Simon just gave so much of his blood to Isabel. He is not in a good headspace. Not the time to be talking to your girlfriend's brother. He also hasn't fed on human blood in a really long time. Clary immediately understands what's happening and she's like, shit, let me go get your bottles of blood. And Simon is like, don't bother. All of them broke on the way here. So I guess like when they dove into the demon realm or whatever, all of his first of all, glass bottles, who the useless, put them in little plastic pouches, man. But anyway, the blood's gone. So we're fucked. Jace is like, Simon, why didn't you tell us? Like, we literally all have blood. We could have helped you at any time. And Simon is like, no offense, but I don't want to feed off of my friends. Jace is like, rewind a couple of chapters, buddy. All right, we've been there before. He says, quote, last time you were starving, I gave you my blood. It was a little homoerotic maybe, but I'm secure enough in my sexuality to let you have some more. Simon is like, thank you, Jace. Your veins are filled with literal fire. So I'm gonna pass, but noted for next time. Clary offers, but Jace is like, actually, no, absolutely the fuck not. When another voice pops up, I'll do it. It's Alec, and he's like, listen, bud, you saved my sister. Don't read into it any more than that, all right? It's not like I like you. Still enemy number 1 in my book, after maybe Sebastian. And so they get Alec in like an okay position. He's like sitting down, whatever. And Alec is like, all right, listen, set the record straight here. I've been told about vampire sexy time and how drinking blood is sometimes a part of it. And I want you to know that I might be gay, but I am not attracted to you in the slightest, Simon Lewis. So don't get any ideas. And Simon is like, yeah, no offense, Alec, but you don't exactly ring any of my bells either, if you know what I mean. He's like, besides, I am well aware that you hate me, Alec. I will not get it twisted. To which Alec is surprised. He's like, you think I hate you? As if he hasn't given Simon proof that he hates him for the past 6 books.
Don't she look great, Alec?
She looks like someone whose phone number should be on a bathroom wall.
Alec, babe. Simon is like, I assume I'm a downworlder and your sister's too good for me. And Alec is like, yeah, she's my sister. She's too good for everyone. But I don't... You're a good guy, I guess. He's like, listen, you're loyal and you're nice. And Isabel likes you. And I'm dating a warlock, for God's sakes, okay? Don't hit me with that downworlder thing. Now shut up and bite me. Simon could taste the metal of fear, the spark of pain, the eager flame of something else, something he had tasted the first time he had drunk Jace's blood on the filthy metal floor of Valentine's ship. Maybe all shadowhunters did have a death wish, after all. And this is when Cassie Clare is like, stop, we need steam. So Clary wakes up in the middle of the night and Jace is like, hey, Clary, wanna go swimming? They found a stupid little lake in the cave that they're sleeping in, and what better time than in the middle of the night in the demon realm after like 2 or 3 of your friends almost just died than to go for a little dip. So they go to the lake, strip down to their undies, and get in the water. Randomly, Jace is like, by the way, I did some math, because remember, shadowhunters don't really remember their birthdays. It's not important to them. He's like, I think I'm turning 17 in January. Isn't that exciting? And Clary is like, oh, should have clocked that. Yeah, Capricorn. All over. So yes, sound the alarm, everybody. Jace is a January Capricorn, spoken by a December Capricorn. So anyway, they have successfully figured out how to get a handle on heavenly fire. Remember, they haven't told us how. They know how. Okay? Which means, can they touch each other? They get reacquainted, let's just say, when all of a sudden Jace pulls back and he's like, that's right. Oh shit, I need to tell you something. He's like, remember when everybody had those dreams of their ideal life and I told you that I didn't have any? He's like, you need to know what I saw. So what did he see? We kind of already got a preview, but he said he saw a room with 2 thrones. Through the window, he could see the world and it was ashes, like this world, but the destruction was newer. The fires were still burning. The sky was full of horrible things. Sebastian was sitting on one of the thrones, and I was sitting on the other. You were there with all the others, but you were in a cage, and I knew I had put you in it. I knew I had turned the key, and I didn't feel sad. I felt triumph. Clary immediately puts on her therapist hat, and remember, they are both naked in a lake as this is going on. Okay, just keep that in mind. She's like, listen, we can't trust anything in this realm, first and foremost, but second of all, you were traumatized as a child. Like, Valentine trained you to think that control was the only way to love. It was the only way to be safe. So you locking us away and being in control of everything sure sounds like the fantasies of a traumatized child. She said that demon looked inside of you and saw a child's fantasy of completely controlling the world so nothing bad can happen to the people he loves. He tried to show that to you and you didn't want it, so that's why you woke up. We all woke up because something was wrong with our dreams, right? Some part of you is still that boy who thinks that to love is to destroy. I know that, but you're learning. You're learning every day. And all Jace could say was, "Can I kiss you, Clary Frey?" Meanwhile, Simon is awake because Jace, when he was like, "Clary, wanna go swimming?" woke Simon up. But he also realizes that Isabel is finally awake. So he's like, "Are you okay? Are you feverish?" And Isabel is like, "Why am I wrapped like a mummy? I'm very uncomfortable." And Simon is like, "Yeah, well, Alex a little overprotective. Here, let me, loosen your bindings," basically. She manages to come over to cuddle with Simon, and he's like, "I can't warm you up. Like, I don't have body heat." And Isabel just like nuzzles her way in between his shoulder and collarbone, And she says, "Oh, Simon, I think we've established in so many ways I'm hot enough for the both of us." Anyway, they end up talking. They rehash the whole conversation of Simon being like, "I actually really love you." Isabel finally says it back. They start making out, which of course wakes Alec up. And this is not the first time this has happened in the book, that he has been just accosted with his sister making out with her boyfriend. And he's literally just like, "Why does this keep happening?" He's like, "Can't you go anywhere else to do these horrible things?" My poor man, Alec, it just truly catching not a single break. But some good news I have for you is that Maya was able to get a note to Gia about the attack. Remember how she managed to get all of that information out of that demon? Maya somehow manages to get in contact with Gia, let her know, and Maya is like, "It's not possible right now for us to come to Idris because they have all of those wards up and things like that." But she's like, "Just know that we're still behind you. Like, you've still got us. Vampires and werewolves, we're on your side." The next morning in hell, the gang comes up with possibly the worst plan yet. And it's sort of thanks to Simon and his D&D campaigns once again. Basically, they're going to storm the Hall of Accords, or wherever they think the whole like center of command is. They're going to attack 5 of the Endarkened, steal their clothes, and pretend that they are Endarkened shadowhunters and just sneak in. Which sounds... They cover themselves in as many runes as they possibly can, preemptively, because they know they're gonna fade. Somehow they do it.
It's a takedown, I'ma take you out, you'll break down like what?
Again, these Endarkened aren't super smart. They're not even 100% in control of their bodies. So somehow they manage to just pick off 5 of the weakest links, grab their clothes, suit up, and just fall into line with all the other Endarkened soldiers. I don't know. They follow these soldiers and they get within the gates of the city, and Clary just can't stop staring at the others, trying to memorize them. Simon's brown eyes, the curve of Jace's collarbone under the red jacket, the arch of Alex's eyebrows, Isabel's worried frown. "Stop," she told herself. "You'll see them again." And she just keeps telling herself this as she marches into the city. They finally get into the Hall of Accords when they feel a cold rush of air as the door slams shut behind them. And before them stands a massive double spiral stone staircase. Leaning on one of the columns, smiling down at them, Sebastian. See how quickly that plan fell apart? Because of course that plan was going to fall apart. Of course Sebastian knows. He's like, "Yeah, obviously." And his smile is positively feral. He is like, Clary, welcome home." But he's like, "I really thought you guys were a lot smarter than this." And he just like snaps his fingers and unleashes a shit ton of demons on them. So, with the caveat that the demons aren't supposed to hurt Clary. But in terms of the rest of them, kill them all. Kill them. But luckily, Clary and Jace just exist on a different level in terms of their telepathy, like their weird couple silent language. So Clary just kind of glances at Jace. She runs to a wall and opens up a portal. She can only have it open for a couple seconds, but luckily Jace is on the ball and he just jumps through it. To where? We don't know. But Sebastian starts screaming because, yeah, he wanted the demons to kill Jace, but like, he kind of wanted to watch, right? But Jace didn't go very far. In fact, he pops out of the other end of the portal, right behind Sebastian.
I got you right where
Never had Jace looked so much like an avenging angel. His bright hair seemed to burn as he landed lightly and raised the weapon he was holding in his hand. He had gone back to that statue. Remember when they got attacked by demons? Yeah, he went back and got that weird Skeptron thing just to have it, The second Sebastian sees it, he turns dead white. He starts screaming, and weirdly enough, he starts screaming like, Jace. Jace thrusts the Skeptron skyward and the ore burst into flame. Immediately, the demons are dust. Handy little thing, okay? The light was so bright that Clary had to close her eyes, and when she opened them, only her and her companions remained. The demons were gone, and Sebastian was there, standing still and pale, shocked on the stairwell.
Crestfallen on the land in shame.
Yeah, their plan might have fallen apart, but their second plan was okay. I'll give them that. I can't give the gang too much shit, okay? Sebastian's plans are always worse. As Emma would say, they're not the most idiotic people in this book. And this is when Jace gets to do his favorite thing, which is gloat. He's like, Sebastian. Obviously, we knew you would recognize us. Did they, though? Debatable. Jace was like, I know you. You lived in my head for a book and a half. I knew you'd underestimate us, and here we are. Sebastian is just like, ooh, you're gonna pay for this, and vanishes like the cartoon villain that he is. And they know that he knows that the best way to hurt them is to hurt the people they love. So remember, they still don't have Clary's mom or Luke or Magnus, or we're assuming they know that Raphael is dead, but we've got to find them ASAP. This is a huge building, by the way. There's a shit ton of staircases, so of course they decide to split up. Alec, for some reason, takes charge. He's like, okay, you go that way, you go this way, you go that way. Remember, he's like, we're gonna get this shit done, because yeah, Clary's mom is there, but his boyfriend Magnus is there. He's gonna go get his boy, okay? So he just starts yelling directions, and everybody branches off. Clary thinks that she hears Simon call her name, but by the time she looks back, he's gone. So she just follows Jace down the east corridor to find her mom. Meanwhile, in Alicante, that secret attack that was going to happen, it's happening now. So luckily, because they knew about it already, they were able to sound the alarms. Everybody is running for safety. Emma and Helen, for some reason, are like running through the streets, just making sure, like helping people get inside. Why is the 12-year-old in charge of helping adults? I don't know. But they're both really good fighters. So Emma has this sword called the Cortana, which we will become well acquainted with in future series. And Helen loves a good crossbow. So these girls cutting through all the demons that are coming their way. At one point, they get a little bit of help from this younger shadow hunter. He's got these chakrams or whatever they're called, and he's good. And both of them are kind of like, who is this hottie? How do we not know this boy? When he turns around, and who is looking at them? Who is looking at them but Brother Zachariah? Yeah, that shut them up real quick. Brother Zachariah is officially reclaiming his title as baddie Shadowhunter, and we love that for him. So he's in the streets too, okay? So they end up fighting together when it starts to get really bad, and Zachariah is like, okay, I don't think this is the space for a 12-year-old. So he pulls Emma aside, and he says something a little weird, all right? He kneels down so that he's eye level with Emma, and he says, Emma Cordelia Carstairs. He looked both very young and very old at the same time. He seemed to be searching her face, though for what, she couldn't say. Stay with your Parbatai, he said, so quietly that no one else could hear them. And Emma's like, babe, I'm 12. He's like, I don't have a Parbatai. What are you? But the doors to the Hall of Accords slams in her face, the wooden latch falling into place with the sound of echoing finality, with Helen on the other side, off to fight alone. So yeah, Brother Zachariah gave her that weird bit of wisdom that is just the thesis statement of the dark artifices, let's just say. And that was just enough to distract her so that Helen could slam the door where she can stay safely in the Hall of Accords while her and Brother Zachariah continue to fight the demon army. Back in Edom, I don't know how he does it, but within seconds, Alec has located Magnus, found his boy. He just like breaks down a door and finds Luke and Magnus, and fantastic news. Meanwhile, Clary, of course, ends up in the throne room, and we get the same damn speech that we've been getting over and over again from Sebastian. Once again, he's like, Clary, I love you. We're the same person. We're meant to be together. La 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 la. Serve next to me, whatever. And he's like, look out that window. Like, you can see Alicante, you can see Idris, and that's happening because you refuse to work with me. Like, look at how many people are dying because of you. Look at how many people are suffering because of you. He says, all of those fighters over there, yeah, they're under my control, Clary. Literally just say one word and I'll stop them with a snap of my fingers. He says, rule beside me and I'll spare your world. Refuse and I'll give the order to annihilate it. Choose me and you save millions, billions of lives. So, sister, you could save a whole world by damning a single soul. Your own. What's your decision? Back to Alec though, we know that couldn't have been that easy. It's never that easy for Alec because remember, Magnus's time in this dimension is slowly killing him. So we get like 1 second of them being like, I miss you, I miss you, I love you, I love you, I'm sorry. And then Magnus collapses. He's on the ground and he's like, you've got Luke. Just go without me. Okay, I'll always love you. And Alec is like, ugh, why do I only fall in love with drama queens? Like first Jace, now you. I cannot catch a break. He tells Isabel and Simon to go with Luke and try to find Jocelyn, basically the last missing piece of this puzzle, right? And he's going to stay with Magnus. Isabel tries to protest. She's like, I'm not leaving you. But Alec is like, no, I need to be here. He turns to Magnus and says, just hold on to me. And Magnus gave him a sort of smile that made him feel like someone had taken an apple core to his heart. I always do, Alexander, he said. I always do. For reasons unknown, perhaps it was the slow, sad montage of all of the people that she is probably killing by her selfishness. Who knows? Clary turns and walks towards the second throne. She moved steadily. She had made her decision. There was no faltering now. The throne was huge, like climbing up onto a platform. It was icy cold to her touch. And when she reached the last step and turned and took her seat, Sebastian said, well done, my sister. My queen. Back in Alicante, the Fae and the demons have gained so much ground that they have broken into the Hall of Accords. And this is where all the children are staying to be safe, right? And who do you think they chose to lead the charge of the Undarkened to go kill all of these kids? Who do you think? Julian's dad. And Julian and Emma are the oldest kids, and so of course they're going to be the ones protecting the even younger kids in the Hall of Accords, right? How the fuck is Julian supposed to kill his father? Emma is trying her best to get to him first so that she can, do the deed, but she keeps getting attacked by the Fae. When Ty, their younger brother, I think he's maybe 9 at this point, he runs to his dad. He's like,
Daddy, oh my god, I missed you, we thought you were dead.
Julian does the first thing that comes to his mind. He throws his dagger. And like Emma, he never misses. His blade whipped past Tiberius and sank into Andrew Blackthorn's chest. His blood smeared across the marble floor as Tiberius gave a cry, whirling to lash out at his brother, pounding his fists against Julian's chest. Ty is screaming about how much he hates Julian, but Julian doesn't even hear it. He steps back, his face white as paper, until he hits one of the stone pillars and slides down, crumpling, his shoulders shaking with silent gasps. And if you ever wanted to read about a tortured, haunted artist who will do anything for his family, even kill his own father, I fear you must read The Dark Artifices. Now back to Clary, a problem we didn't foresee. Okay, Clary's like, I did it. Call off the war. I'll serve next to you. Let everybody go. And Sebastian's like, ooh, wording is important there, girl. I said that I would call off the war. Yeah, and I will. And he snaps his fingers. He's like, seal the borders, make them stop. But by sealing the borders, everyone who's currently in hell is stuck in hell. Sebastian is like, I said nothing about getting you guys an Uber. I said I would stop the destruction over there. I don't arrange transportation for you people. Your fault, you're on the wrong side. Simon and Isabel, as they're running, somehow stumble upon Jace, who got injured, and Isabel goes to check his pulse when, of course, fucking Sebastian appears out of nowhere. He's like, oh, don't worry, he's definitely okay, like Queen's orders. And Isabel is like, that fucking silly Queen, I knew you guys were working together. And Sebastian's like, no, not that Queen. Enter Queen Clary. Oh yeah, she bargained for everybody's safety. So everybody's still alive, which is great, but they're certainly not allowed to leave. And they gather in the throne room and Sebastian is like, don't talk to her. Don't look at her. He's like, face the walls. So any hope of all Sebastian needs is Clary and then he won't be evil. Nah. But then once he climbs onto his giant throne, he turns around and he's like, oh, I'm so glad you're all here. It's like a party. In Clary's life, she'd seen many things that were wonderful and beautiful, but also many things that were terrible. But none were as terrible as the look on her mother's face, as Jocelyn stared at her daughter, seated on the throne behind Sebastian's. Sebastian's really excited. He's like, oh my god, this is so exciting. This is my first time as king. Welcome to Edom. Welcome to your new world. Now what follows... Stay with me. Clary tries to explain herself to the crowd. She's like, listen, I did this to save the world. Like, sorry that you're gonna have to stay here for the rest of your sad, ugly little lives. Millions and billions of people are alive because of us. I had no choice. This is when Sebastian, and just please, stay with me, all right? Sebastian asks for a kiss to show their unity, their solidarity, and to prove that Clary really loves him, right? He's checking all the boxes. This is all Sebastian wants, right? He doesn't care about the rest of the world. He just wants Clary's love. And so even though she's disgusted, she leans towards him. She lay one hand on his shoulder. Her other hand slid to her waist, where the Morgenstern sword rested in its scabbard. She felt him shudder against her as she whispered, her lips moving against his cheek. "Hail, master," she said. She saw his eyes widen just as she pulled the sword free and brought it up in a bright arc, the blade slamming through his ribcage, the tip positioned to pierce his heart. Remember when he kissed Jace? Because how could we forget that? And it was an allusion to when Judas kissed Jesus in the garden. Judas also whispered, "Hail, master." He called Jesus master. So it's obvious that she is betraying him. And in his eyes, he's actually hurt. He can't believe that he was just betrayed by his beloved sister. And there's a weird, deep, hidden part of Clary that feels hurt too. In a place she thought she'd buried long ago, a place that mourned the brother he might have been. But after he gets over this shock, he starts giggling, of all things, which is never good. He's like, "Clary, babe, you know I can't be hurt by any weapon made under heaven." But then he gasps because the wound isn't healing. He's like, all right, okay, that bleeding should have stopped by now. What's going on? Clary's like, "Yeah, brother mine, you can't be hurt by a weapon made under heaven. But this weapon is heaven." So remember when they wouldn't tell us how they got Jace's fire under control? She somehow figured out that her rune could make the magic happen, and when she stabbed Jace, it reabsorbed the heavenly fire. So when he was going all out of control and he couldn't stop the flames and she came and helped him, she absorbed all of the heavenly fire into her Morgenstern sword. So she can stab Sebastian and he's not gonna heal. In the throne room, Clary could hear Sebastian screaming, and over that, the cries of the Undarkened. A burning wind blew past her, and then the noise stopped as suddenly as it started. Laying on the ground is Sebastian with this huge black burning hole in his chest. And he turns to Clary and he's like, "God damn, that was really clever. Sister, I'm impressed. And she can't help but notice that he looks a lot different. It wasn't just that his eyes were suddenly green, but his whole face looked softer, younger, less evil.
Yeah, I know. It's the fluorescence.
"Sebastian," she said. "No," he whispered. I'm not him. I'm Jonathan." He turns to Jocelyn, and then he just starts coughing up blood, and he gives us this really long, heartfelt apology. He said, "Heavenly fire burns away that which is evil, remember? Jace survived because he's good. There was enough of him left to live. But I was born to be all corruption. There's not enough left of me. So what you see now, I guess, is just a ghost of someone who could have been. Someone you should have known." Jocelyn just starts sobbing because this is the baby. This is the child that she was supposed to raise if Valentine hadn't taken him and corrupted him, right? Like, he was still in there a little bit. So Jocelyn is sobbing, and Jonathan has just enough breath left to say, "Listen, when I die, the Undarkened are gonna rush at you, and I don't have the power to hold them back anymore." So he turns to Jace and says, "Just take my sword." His breath coming in gasps. "Cut it open." Jocelyn is like, "Cut what open?" But Jace is already running. He knows. Remember, he knows this guy. He strode across the room directly to one of the dead demons laying on the ground. And Clary is like, "How the fuck does he know what to do? This is so silly." And Jonathan is like, "He knows me." He cuts open the demon, and in there lies the infernal cup. Somehow Sebastian decided to stash it inside his bodyguard demon. I don't know. Jace wastes no time and destroys it immediately. Amantis tries to get in his way, but he's like, "Babe, look at me. Who are you dealing with?" And he shatters the infernal cup. All the Undarkened lurch. The sky turns red, the color of blood. There was a gasping exhalation of sorrow, as if the universe were weeping. Jonathan's eyes were fluttering closed. I once dreamed of a green place. A manor house with this little girl with red hair, preparations for a wedding. If there are other worlds, maybe there's one where I was a good brother and a good son all my life. This demon blood has scorched my veins and it cut my heart like blades. It weighed me down like lead all my life. I never knew the difference. I've never felt so light, he said softly. Then he smiles, closes his eyes, and dies. So Clary kind of gives her mom space to just kind of cradle Jonathan in her arms. It's almost like Jocelyn kind of lost her son twice, so she needs a moment. We've still got 100 pages left, okay? And problems to solve. When Sebastian still had his demon blood, when Sebastian was still Sebastian, he really did close the borders of hell. So how are we getting out? Magnus sighs, dragging himself weakly to his feet, and brings his hands together as if in prayer. My Father, who art in hell, unhallowed be thy name. Oh yeah, we're summoning Demon Daddy. We're summoning Demon Daddy, okay? All of a sudden, out of the shadows, this super tall man appears. He is as pale as bone and in a pure white suit. Alec makes this kind of choking sound because he realizes he's about to meet his boyfriend's dad, and his boyfriend's dad is a prince of hell. Alec never chooses the easy road. Ever, okay? Magnus immediately is like, hi, Dad. He's like, I don't really want to talk to you, but we need to get out of here. Can you make us a door? And to his credit, the Prince of Hell is like, of course, son, I can get you out of here really easily. In fact, here's a demonstration. And he just snaps his fingers and Luke, Jocelyn, and Jonathan's body are gone. Clary is like, what the fuck? Where did you send my mother? But he's like, it's fine. I sent her to Idris. I sent her where you guys want to go. I know plan. All right. I've been around. Edom is my space. All right. All your yapping, I was there for it. But it's not going to be that easy. Our Prince of Hell is bored. And shadowhunters kill demons. So I feel like he's going to want to have fun with this. So he's pretty much like, who's ready to make a deal? Magnus isn't having any of this. He's like, I know what you really want and you can have it. But you have to swear to send all my friends back to Idris and they owe you nothing. And Alec immediately is like, no. Deals with the devil. Let's discuss this first, Magnus, okay? It certainly sounds like you are not coming back to Idris with us when you word it that way. Papa Demon explains that there is a time where we all must live with our parents, all right? Pay it back. And Magnus's time has come. He says, especially because you guys just killed half the demons in my realm and we need a little power boost to keep us going. So what does he want? What's this deal? He would like an immortal life here to basically be their battery so that they can like have a power source and make more demons and like become a powerful kingdom of hell again. And who's got an immortal soul? Magnus Bane. And this is going to leech the life and power out of Magnus. So Clary is like, I'm sorry, you want to kill your own child? And the demon is just like, that's really cute, Magnus. You got people to actually give a shit about you. Adorable. At this point, Alec is done with thinking he could ever impress or be friends with his boyfriend's dad. So he steps up and he's like, excuse me, sir, I would just like to let you know that we are shadowhunters. And so it is our job to kill demons. And that includes princes of hell. But Alec kind of stops to think and he's like, wait. So he wants to take your immortal soul. He wants to take your immortality. So then you would just be a mortal man. And then you could live with me, a mortal man. And we wouldn't have this big elephant in the room of our relationship, which is the reason why we keep breaking up. And wouldn't it be really nice of Cassie Clare to just give us an easy out and let us live happily ever after? Do it, man. Yeah, Daddy Demon, take his immortal soul. But this is Alec. And we know nothing easy happens to Alec. So Magnus is like, it doesn't really work that way. He's like, yes, I will become a mortal man. But I'm 400 years old. So all of those years are gonna hit me. And I don't know a mortal man who has lived to be 400 years old. So I would die instantaneously. He actually says 400 years is quite a lot to take, even if you do moisturize regularly. But then he gets really serious and he's like, Alec, listen, I've lived a long time and It doesn't feel like enough, I won't lie and say that it does. And I want to live, mostly because of you. I've never wanted to live so much as I have these past few months with you. But I have to save you, Alec. You and everyone you love. It's a small price to pay, isn't it, in the end, for all that? We get an incredibly emotional scene where everyone is crying. Magnus is trying to be like, I'm willing, right? Because it needs to be a willing sacrifice. So he's stepping up. He's like, I willingly give you. And then Simon fucking Lewis steps up to the plate. I'm willing, he says.
Is the ultimate Riz master. Internet knows this. Zendaya knows this. Everyone knows this. Yeah. Ultimate Riz master.
These fucking boys and they're volunteering as tribute moments. I can't. But listen to his reasoning. Okay, is he off his rocker? Yes. Does he have good reasoning? Let's see. Here's his case. Simon is like, hi, hello. Simon Lewis here. As you know, I'm a vampire, which makes me immortal. I'm also 17. 17 years and a couple immortal months, right? How long has he been a vampire? Not long. If those hit me, if I turn back into immortal and those hit me, what, my soul will be middle-aged? I think I'll be fine. I think I can handle it. Magnus would absolutely die. Me, who knows? Shaving a decade or two off my life, I don't mind. He's like, need I remind you, I didn't want any of this. I didn't want to be a vampire. I didn't want to be immortal. I didn't really want to be hanging out with these demon kids until I saw this really hot girl that I think I like. I don't want to live forever. I don't want to watch my friends die. Everyone is screaming, no, Simon, oh no. But Daddy Demon is sort of like, ooh, I've heard of you. You're that daylighter. I'm interested. And Isabel is like, babe, you're a vampire, so you're dead. If he takes your immortality, won't you just be dead? To which Magnus's dad says, and I quote, you are a very stupid girl, which just made me laugh out loud. He's like, I am the Prince of Hell. I can literally break down walls between worlds, which is what you're asking me to do. I can take his immortality away. You don't think I'm capable of turning his heart back on? Little Prince of Hell CPR? He says, child's play. But that sounds, once again, way too fucking easy, right? Way too easy. Because as it stands, what we're looking at, Simon gets to be a normal teenager again, Magnus gets to live, and everybody gets to go back safely, no harm done. No, this is a Cassandra Clare novel. Ahem. Tell us what you're going to do to Simon, Cassie Clare. The demon daddy is going to take Simon's immortality. He also is going to take his memories of all of the shadow world, which means anything to do with the demon realm, shadow hunters, vampires, etc. He will have the life of an ordinary mundane. He'll have his family back, his mother, his sister, friends, school, all the trappings of a normal human life. But he will forget everything about you. He'll forget he ever knew you. Okay, so I'm thinking that's fine. That's fine. They can just tell him later. Wrong, because remember, the Clave has such crazy strict rules about telling people about Shadowhunters that if they ever tried to tell him about who they were, how they knew him, whatever, they would be exiled as well. So they're never going to talk to Simon again. This is when Isabel is like, oh, you think you're funny, huh? You think I'm scared to slay a Prince of Hell? I will hang your head on my wall like a trophy if you dare touch Simon. I will hunt you down. I will spend the rest of my life hunting you. To which Alec grabs her and puts his hand over his mouth and he's like, Jesus, Isabel. Come on. This is when Chase comes in, another I volunteer as tribute kind of guy. And he's like, honestly, guys, it's Simon's choice. We should honor it. Like, if the dude doesn't want to live to be 1,000,000 years old, who are we to stop him? Simon looked back at Chase and gave him a nod. His gaze moved slowly towards all of them, from Magnus to Alex, to Jace to Isabel, where it stopped and rested. They were so full of broken possibilities. Clary felt her own heartbreak. Then he looked at Clary, and she felt the rest of her heart shatter. He tossed her something bright, and when she reached up and caught it, it was the golden ring Clary had given him. Her hand tightened around it, feeling the bite of metal against her palm.
Enough,
said Shadow Daddy. He's like,
I hate goodbyes.
He waves his hands, and all of a sudden, Simon gets this crazy look in his face because his heart starts beating for the first time in months. And as his memories get stolen from him, we get to watch the montage just going backwards. Alec gets to watch a lot of kissing Isabel again, unfortunately. His memories were being drawn out and spun into a skein. It shimmered, white gold as daylight. And then Clary was thrown onto the floor of the Accords Hall. They were all there. All of them except one. All of the Shadowhunters rush to embrace the gang that comes back and help them and heal them. And Clary knew that she should be thankful to have all of this support, but she just felt so empty. Her hand tightened on the gold ring in her palm, and she curled up against the floor, finally allowing herself to cry. But somehow the trauma is still not over, because now we have to have a hearing to figure out what to do with the Fae. Obviously the Fae are going to be punished, but what about Mark? Okay, hero of the day, right? Complicated. He is already in the Wild Hunt, which technically doesn't fall under the Seelie Queen's jurisdiction. We can't just go get him out. So put a pin in that. But what about Helen? Helen is also half Fae. If we're punishing the Fae, shouldn't we be punishing the half Fae? But Gia is like, no, we do not punish our own. She is a shadow hunter. But just to show that there's no special treatment, Gia decides to give Helen a position at the Institute on Wrangel Island, which is this tiny frozen landmass in the Arctic Sea north of Russia. To which her girlfriend Aileen is like, oh, fuck that. Like, they're intentionally separating her from anyone that she loves. So she has to go live north of Russia for an unknown amount of time. They eventually vote on whether or not they should use any more power to kind of try to help Mark. It's kind of 50-50, but there's this one really evil shadow hunter named Sedgwick who's basically like, fuck the Blackthorns. They're gonna betray us anyway, blah, blah, blah. Says some weird racist shit about the Fae. And they vote to not help him. Kid's on his own, which makes Julian Blackthorn, at the age of 12 or 13, the eldest of his family, in charge of raising 3 tiny tots. What does this mean for Emma? Emma is apparently staying in Idris. Remember, affectionately called a war orphan. She has no other family. So Gia is having a meeting with Luke, and she's basically talking about how they're going to set this up, who should she be housed with, and Emma and Julian are eavesdropping, because of course they are. And Gia says something along the lines of like, I'm sure she'll be upset, but Emma busts out of whatever cabinet she's hiding in, and she's like, you want to hear about upset, lady? No, I'm not staying here. I'm not staying in this weird ass shadow hunter country when I have a family waiting for me in LA. She said, and in fact, you can't stop me, because Julian and I are going to be parbatai. We're old enough to make that decision. We're going through with the ritual, and it's illegal to separate us, so just you try. Julian is just standing behind her, jaw on the floor, like, did we discuss this? Emma, this is big. This is big. Gia and Luke are like, that's a huge decision, Emma. Are you sure? Emma pushed back the small voice in her head that whispered, wait, and instead nodded firmly. I'm absolutely sure, she said. In the meantime, Clary and Jace are having a small funeral for Jonathan. They take his ashes to the lake. They have a nice quiet moment. And they also visit Herondale Manor. And Jace decides he really wants to be a Herondale. No more Jace Morgenstern, Jace Lightwood, Jace Whalen. He is Jace Herondale. What's up with Alec now? He's got his boyfriend back. He's pissed as fuck, because it's not really talked about a lot in this book, but he's really close with Helen. They're kind of like the very few queer shadow hunters, and she just got sent to fucking north of Russia, okay? So he's really pissed at the council when Magnus just appears. And because they haven't like officially had time to talk about, are they together again? Remember, they just broke up, and then Alex saved his life. So we got a DTR, guys, to find the relationship. Magnus gives this really long speech about how he is so scared of loving Alec, but he didn't give Alec a fair chance. So he hands him a journal. And apparently Magnus is a big journal girly and has chronicled the 400 years of his life. And he's like, here it is. No secrets. This is it. Get to know me. He says, consider this the first installment of everything I want to tell you. I wasn't sure, but I hoped if you wanted to be with me as much as I want to be with you, you might take this as evidence. Evidence that I'm willing to give you something I've never given anyone. My past. The truth of myself. I want to share my life with you, and that means today and the future and all of my past. If you want it. If you want me. They share a long romantic look. You know how Cassie Clare can write those like burning, yearning gazes. When Magnus gives him a kiss, slow and gentle, a kiss that promised more later when they were no longer on a rooftop and could be seen by everybody. So, I'm your first shadow hunter, huh? Alex said. You're my first of so many things, Alec Lightwood, Magnus said with a smile. And last of our gang, how is Isabel holding up? She just had her boyfriend's memory erased. The first boy she's ever admitted she loves. How are you doing, girl? As well as you can imagine. And something that wasn't explained until just now is that Clary was able to get one phone call to Simon. I guess they had somebody like making sure that his memories really did erase. They had like a shadowhunter private detective follow him and just make sure he's doing okay. Apparently Simon is fine. He's just at home with his sister and his mom, living a totally normal life. Okay, but Clary makes the phone call and his mom answers. Is Simon there? Clary's palm was damp with sweat on the phone receiver. May I ask who's calling? She closed her eyes. It's Clary. It's about our English homework. I go to his school. And sure enough, when Simon gets on the phone and she introduces herself as Clary, he's like, do we know each other? Do I know you? She makes up some story about school, asks him some questions about English class. It's like, listen, can I ask you a kind of weird question? If someone were to ask you who's your best friend in the whole wide world, who would you say? Simon laughs. He's like, I should have known this was about Eric. Listen, if you want his phone number, you could have just asked. And Clary hangs up the phone. He thought Clary was calling him so that she could hit on his friend Eric, who's like the lead singer of his band. She relays this whole story to Isabel, trying not to cry. And Isabel's like, do you think he was pretending? And Clary's like, he was never a good liar, to be honest. And they both agree that this is almost worse than if he were dead. Isabel says, if he were dead, I could grieve him, but now I don't know what to think. I should be grateful. I should be happy. I mean, he told me he loved me. Now he doesn't even know who I am. Clary and Isabel sit in silence on their windowsill, their hands locked across the distance between them. We have reached the epilogue, the beauty of 1,000 stars. We have a time jump from December until May, and Clary and the gang are hanging out outside of St. Xavier's High School, looking for a familiar face. They all have invisibility runes on, but apparently invisibility runes don't work on poodles because a poodle gives Magnus a rather nasty look. Isabel's laughing at him when her laugh just cuts off and she just says, there he is. Clary's head snapped up and the school doors opened. 3 boys stepped out to the front of the stairs. Kirk, Eric, and Simon. It had been December when she'd seen him last, and he was pale and dirty and bloody and vampiric. Now he was aging, no longer frozen in time. His hair had gotten longer. There was color in his cheeks. Clary immediately gets rid of her invisibility rune and just runs over to him. He's a pretty outgoing, charming guy, I would say. He is the extrovert of the group. So he's just like, hey, what's up? His friends had walked off and he's kind of like, do I know you once again? And Clary's like, yeah, I know you from kindergarten. And Simon's like, oh, all right, good memory. That's weird coincidence. And Clary's like, yeah, remember that one time that you played Hungry Hungry Hippos with me? She was like, you ate all the marbles. Honestly, on brand for Simon. And hearing this, Simon goes a little pale under his slight tan. He's like, how did you wait? But that I did that when I was alone. I ate those marbles by myself. And Clary's like, no, you weren't. She's staring at him so deeply. She's like, I'm telling you, we were friends. I was there. She randomly mentions that her mom is getting married tonight, and Simon is like, do you need a +1? Like, he doesn't understand where this conversation is going. And she's like, no, I've got a date. It's fine. And Simon's like, oh, what does this girl want? She's like, but you and my mom used to be friends. So I, thought you might want to know. She said, if things were right, you'd want to be there. Simon's like, if things were right? She leaned up on her tiptoes and kissed him quickly on the cheek. Be happy, she said, and turned away to head back to the blurred figures of Isabel and Magnus. But before she can cross the street, Simon is like, hold up. Hey, here. And hands her a flyer. He's like, listen, my band has a show. Come, maybe. She took the flyer with a silent nod and crossed the street. When she gets back to her friends, she's like, I'm sorry, that was pointless. And Isabel's like, what'd he give you? Clary's like, oh, it's just a band flyer. They've got a show coming up. She's like, trust me, I've heard them practice. It's not worth your time. I used to help him Xerox these things. I doubt the band has gotten any better. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go help my mom with the wedding. So see you guys later. Isabel watched Clary go, And she looked down at the flyer she handed her. On the flyer was Simon's name and his 3 other bandmates. Do you want to know the name of his band? Remember, this has been an ongoing joke the whole series, is that his band changes their name every probably 2 pages. And what is his band named now? None other than the Mortal Instruments. Isabel's breath hitched in her throat. Magnus whistled through his teeth. The Mortal Instruments, whew. Isabel is like, listen, Magnus, if this is any hint that he's getting his memory back, we should do the thing. What is the thing? We don't know. We don't know. But Magnus knows. He's like, okay, but if we're gonna do the thing, it's dangerous and we gotta do it right. And he says, if it doesn't work or if he doesn't want it, we can't tell Clary. He's like, this is our one shot. Let's give it a go. Meanwhile, we get a Simon POV. Love it, okay? He's been having a really weird day. Okay, first off, he goes to Java Jones, their favorite coffee shop where they go to poetry readings and sometimes run into mysterious hot blonde boys named Jace. And the barista is like, hey, where's your pretty girlfriend? I haven't seen her in a while. And so apparently Shadow Daddy did a pretty bad job erasing memories because he didn't erase kind of the random side characters' memories of Clary, you know? And he's just like, I'm not sure who you're talking about, but thanks for the coffee. And then after school, this weird redheaded girl ran up to him and was like, hungry hippos, my mom's getting married. Ah. And he's really freaked out because it's not like him to forget a friend. He's like, that's something I actually really like about myself, is how, you know, how I maintain my friendships and how I don't really forget a face. He's kind of freaked out because his memory's been acting really weird lately. Bits of memories would come to him. Fragments of poetry he didn't know how he'd learned, glancing recollections of voices, dreams he'd wake up from shaking and sweating, landscapes of echoes, the taste of blood, a bow and arrow in his hand. So at this point, he's on the subway just thinking about how weird his life is when it gets a lot weirder. Because this dude just waltzes up to him in like an all velvet suit and a shit ton of rings. And he's like, can I sit there? And he points to the seat next to Simon. He's like, I'm Magnus. And Simon's like, you wouldn't happen to be a long lost friend of mine, would you? Because that's the theme of the day. And Magnus is like, actually, no. No, we never really got along, but my cat liked you. Simon is like, I'm at the end of my rope. Man, I feel like I'm going crazy. What is going on? And Magnus is like, that's great. It sounds like you're really desperate, willing to try anything. What do you say? He's like, picture like a circus ringleader. Okay, Magnus is like, and for our next act, you know, and Simon's just sitting there on the subway like, and Magnus is like, I'm gonna bring out my beautiful assistant, Isabel. Out of nowhere, a girl appeared. Maybe the most beautiful girl Simon had ever seen. When she says hello to him, that is the final straw. Simon is like, it is so entirely out of the realm of possibility that a girl who looks like that would ever talk to a guy like me. So I've clearly lost my mind. It's over. It's over. Isabel says, Simon? She said it like it was the only name that mattered. His brain sputtered to a stop like an old car. Poor Simon. Magnus just dives in. Magnus is like, okay, listen, I've got a very short window to tell you all of this, but there is a world of magic and demons and vampires and shadows. He's like, you used to know all of this, but it was taken from you. He said, you saved lives. You slayed demons. The blood of angels rocketed through your veins like sunlight. He's like, your friend Clary was born this way, but you, Simon, you were made. All of this entire world was thrust upon you and you adapted. You were extraordinary, even though you had no choice in the matter. And Simon, I think you should get to choose. Magnus is like, you didn't ask to be a part of it. You didn't ask to be taken from it. Magnus is going to throw the ball in Simon's court one more time. And this is when we learn what the thing is that they're planning. Basically, he's been digging through some spell books trying to find a way to reverse the curse when he realizes the answer was right in front of him all along. In fact, he's dating one of them. Shadowhunters. He's like, you could become a shadowhunter. There's so many people to vouch for you. Like, Simon's memories might have been erased, but everybody in the shadow world remembers him and knows that he essentially he was the savior of this entire book, right? Jace who? No offense. Everybody knows that we owe Simon a big one. He's like, listen, I can help start the ascension process, and then we can go get some letters of recommendation to make it fully official. And then when you become a full shadow hunter, I think you'll get your memories back. You might even get some back when we start the ascension process. He says, it's your decision, Simon Lewis. Remain in the existence you have. Go to college, study music, get married, or you can have an uncertain life of shadows and danger. You can have the joy of reading the stories of incredible happenings, or you can be a part of the story. This is when Simon notices Magnus has the eyes of a cat. So Simon's next question, which was going to be, does magic exist, pretty much flies out of his head. He's like, yep, that guy's got cat eyes. I can put two and two together. So Magnus just says, the choice is up to you. But now let's get to this damn wedding. Okay, we are at the reception. Everybody who's everybody is there, including this very familiar, very handsome boy with dark hair and an elegant black suit that sets off his high cheekbones. And he's with this really beautiful brunette girl. Isabel does this long whistle and she's like, ooh, brother Zachariah, man, he is months January through December of the hot Silent Brothers calendar. And what is he doing here? Good news for everybody. Brother Zachariah has decided to remain human. He is going to just be around being a hottie instead of going back to being a silent brother. And the world is better for it. But before we can get answers about Brother Zachariah, another beautiful boy appears in the form of Jace. He sets down his champagne glass and gives Clary a hand. He's like, care to dance? Clary's like, there's no music playing. Jace smiled at her. We don't need it. Isabel is like, barf, that's our cue to leave. And she grabs Alec and drags him to another side of the room. Take me with you. We get two god-awful love confessions. We already know that Jace and Clary love each other, but Cassie Clare just needs to wrap it up. And wrap it up she does, okay? So Jace gives us this long speech about how Clary makes him a better person. It's great. Good job. Nice speech. And Clary doesn't respond. And Jace is like, that's fine. You know, I get it. Like, in the relationship, I'm the big speech guy. You know, you don't need to say anything back. And Clary is like, no, I will give you a speech. She says, I will give you a speech in the form of a fun scientific fact. So get ready. Here we go. Did you know there are 100 trillion cells in the human body? And did you know every single one of those cells loves Jace Herondale? Even when she sheds and grows new ones, her new cells love him even more than the old ones. When they burn Clary's body and she becomes ash, and everyone who breathes in air or sees flowers that grow out of the ground, they will remember how much I love you because I love you that much. Once again, if I could have gotten up with Isabel and run to the other side of the room, I would have. Oh. We get the beginnings of a hot and heavy makeout scene when, thank the Lord, Magnus shows up and is like, guys, there's something you should see. Jace, in all caps, is like, we're busy! But Magnus always gets his way. So we follow him out of the tent, and Clary just sees a blur of familiar faces. She's looking around. She's like, wow, great crowd for my mom's wedding. When she sees Isabel, and she sees Isabel standing next to an extremely familiar face. Someone looking awkward. Someone who looks like Simon Lewis. Clary's heart skipped a beat, then another. It couldn't be him, but there he was, smiling at her with a little uncertainty. Clary didn't even remember starting to run. But Magnus jerks her back and is like, listen, girl, he doesn't remember everything. We gotta go easy on him. I gave him as much as I could, but just don't overwhelm him, all right? It's hard enough for him standing next to somebody as hot as Isabel. He's still not believing that one. Clary is like, yeah, you're right. Cool. I'll be cool. It's fine. And she launches herself into Simon's arms. She hits him so hard he almost falls over, and she's half hugging him, half sobbing into the front of his coat. She's like, do you know who I am? She's like a koala holding on to him. She's like, do you know me? Simon's like, honestly, guys, this feels like a family reunion where everybody knows me, but But then he looks at her, really looks at her, and it's as if he's waking up from a dream. He's not entirely sure where he was, but then he just smiles and says, I don't remember everything, but I remember you. Clary, he said, and you're my best friend. The party is bumping. Everybody's been invited. So now that the sun is down, all the vampires are here. And apparently the DJ needs a break. So Jace is like, I'll do it. I'll kill the fucking mood. And somehow there's a grand piano and he begins to play Chopin. This is also when we get introduced to a woman named Tessa, who's the hottie with hot brother Zachariah, but that's a story for another day. We instead zoom back over to Isabel. She's leaning against the piano, just watching Jace play.
She's really good.
when someone calls her name. She turns around and it's Simon, and his cheeks look flushed because he's just so awkward. And Isabel immediately is like, whoa, I actually have never seen him blush before because he was a vampire. He didn't have any blood. She was like, I actually kind of dig this. This is great. And she can see that he recognizes her, but it wasn't the way he used to look at her. It wasn't that longing and sweet ache and sense that here was someone who saw her. But nevertheless, Simon asked her to dance. And once they start dancing, he like clears his throat. So awkward. It's so cringe. He's like, listen, people are telling me that we used to, what were we? Isabel's like, stop right there, cowboy. Like, we're not doing any funny business until you remember me. I'm not gonna restart my relationship with little amnesia boy, okay? And she's like, and by the way, you used to call me Izzy. Stop this Isabel bullshit. He leans in, and she felt his breath against her hair. He said, I remember kissing you. What? Isabel's like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah, I do. I felt this way for months now, like something was missing, something wasn't right. He said, I didn't remember during the day, but I dreamed of you at night. It was always you. He's like, Magnus told me I was some kind of hero and that I was brave and I did great things, but I don't remember, so I guess that makes me not a hero anymore. But I'd like to try to be that guy again. I'd like to be the guy who gets to kiss you, you know? I'd like to earn it, and if you're patient enough, I'd like to try. Isabel is like, God damn it, that is such a Simon Lewis fucking line. Like, of course, only Simon would be able to say those words. Izzy's like freaking out inside because her boyfriend's back, baby. Her boyfriend is back. But she's a cool girl. She's a cool girl. So she's like, I might just let you try. Can't promise anything. His face lit up. I wouldn't expect you to, he said. You're a heartbreaker, Isabel Lightwood. I remember that much. But the reunion that we're all excited about is Simon and Jace. Okay, how are they going to end this? How are they going to end this? Sure enough, they're talking, they're mingling, okay? Everybody's having a good time once Jace finally gets off the fucking piano. Simon looks at him, and he's sort of like in awe, but also very scared. And Simon's like, hey, did I ever bite you? Jace is like, of all the goddamn things for you to remember, Simon Lewis? Yeah. We had a moment, okay? It was beautiful. It was short. Simon is like, right. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. We were like rolling around in the belly of a boat? And Jace is like, okay, yes, you bit me. Yes, I kind of liked it. We're moving on, okay? He's like, we're not going to talk about it again. You're not a vampire anymore. Focus on Isabel, okay? This, not going to happen. Isabel walks up and she's like, you also bit Alec. And Jace is like, shut the guys, what happens in the demon realm stays in the demon realm, okay? You guys mingle. I gotta talk to Clary. My girlfriend, Clary, that I haven't been able to make out with for 700 pages. Yeah, that girl. Let's go. But to Jace's chagrin, Clary invites everybody out for the walk because it's a beautiful night. There's a gorgeous little lake outside where the wedding reception is gonna be. She's like, it's a beautiful night, Jace. Our friends are finally all back together. Let's all go. Guys, this is the end of an era. I'll miss you all so much. When they get to the lake, there are fireflies and moonlight and magic. Magnus pulls a bunch of blankets out of nowhere, which is super handy. And there are all of these couples everywhere, like giggling and whispering and generally being in love. Okay? I skipped one part because it's kind of like an Easter egg for future books, but basically we get a scene where Clary is given the old Herondale ring. And so now she gives it to Jace. She's like, listen, if you want it, you should have it. Like, you've chosen the name Herondale. Clearly you're a lovesick puppy dog like all of your ancestors. It's yours. Jace slides it onto his right hand and he says quietly, every time I think I'm missing a piece of me, you give it back. And we have a moment to just take in the beauty, okay? The beauty that is Jace Herondale under the moonlight. When suddenly he's like, you like the name Herondale, right? Like, there's a lot of cool Shadowhunter names. Do you like Herondale? He's like, I really want you to consider what Clary Herondale sounds like. To which Clary is like, actually, it sounds horrible. And Jace is like, well, sacrifices must be made for love, my darling. She leans against him and looks around as Magnus starts a fire, which is burning merrily at the lakeside. She can see it reflecting in the scarlet of Isabel's necklace as she turns to laugh with Simon. She can't help but think, we are all the pieces of what we remember. We hold in ourselves the hopes and fears of those who love us. And as long as there is love and memory, there's no true loss. And with that, the Mortal Instruments series comes to an end. So many Easter eggs. If you haven't read the other series, let me just give you some things to think about, okay? Chronologically, next, we would be reading The Dark Artifices, which we have a big time jump, and we have Emma and Julian and Mark and Helen, and even, you know what, Jace and Clary are there. Simon is there. Actually, yeah, everybody's here. That one has a lot more fae. That one has polyamory. It's Cassie Clare, so there's going to be forbidden love, etc. Weirdly, that's my guilty pleasure series. I reread that. Like, if I want to reread a book of the Shadowhunters, I will reread The Dark Artifices because I have like no stake in the game. I know that I can like put it down whenever I want to, but you know what? They're not bad. But if you don't want any spoilers, I believe you should read The Infernal Devices next, which is where we see a little... Oh my god, how rude. My camera turned off. Hold on. When did I last speak? Okay, rude. Anyway, yeah, so Dark Artifices, the gang is all there. Technically, if you don't want to spoil anything, we also need to read The Infernal Devices first. The Infernal Devices series is the very, very first. So if you want to read it chronologically, you can go for The Infernal Devices. Anyway, yeah, guys, we're done. So let me know how you feel about the plot summary videos. Thank you very much for waiting for part 4. Let me know what you want to see next. I don't know if I would do a series this big ever again because this was so much work and just obviously it took me years to finish. So if you have maybe a standalone or a shorter series, I mean, this was 6 books and the books were like 500 to 700 pages. Clearly my voice doesn't like doing these. So yeah, just let me know how you guys are doing. Love to you always. Catch you guys in the next one. I'm actually, after this, I will be heading to Ireland. So I've got a lot of fun Irish content for you heading your way. And, yeah, just see you then. Okay. Wow. Off to edit this, off to fight, the copyright lords. The only person who has vanquished me is Jason Derulo. He always gets me. But other than that, I'm going to get away with it. If Miss Taylor Swift doesn't copyright claim me for all of my usage of fearless, Jason Derulo, who do you think you are? I thought we were friends. Anyway, all right. Wish me luck. And now the sun comes out. All right. Bye.